Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to place your order.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Breeder Feature Friday here on Geeky Gecko Creations Live. I see that we have some of our fans and followers here in the chat already. So we got Rob, we got Bam Bam, we got Lisa, or we got Dragon Heart Exotics. What a great name. Really good to see you guys here. So our special guest of the day is Rebecca from Dragoon Geckos. Did I say that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
What is Dragoon, Rebecca? Can you tell us real quick, or is that?
That's an easy question. Yeah, I was always a huge fan of dragons and everything dragon involved, and I knew when I found a Dragoon Gecko that I wanted a logo with a dragon and a gecko. So Dragon Gecko, the name was already taken, and we thought a little bit about different names, and then we came up with Dragoon, which is a cool prefix for, it's its own name, and it could be a cool prefix if you get into other breeding adventures. For example, I also have a breeding dog homepage called Dragoon Dogs, but that's another story.
So it's pronounced Dragoon. It just came to me. I was like, Dragoon, and then I saw that you have a dragon on your logo. So I was like, maybe it means dragon. We're going to try something real quick. I love being able to pop onto another screen and like show our guests pages and whatnot. Sometimes that causes a little bit of an echo. So if it causes an echo to you, just let me know right now. But this is your page, right?
Correct. I just launched.
Are you echoing? Are you echoing to yourself or no?
Yes.
Okay. So what we'll do is if I need to show you something on your page, I'll flash to it real quick, and then I'll come back to this page, and you shouldn't echo here.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I launched it just on Halloween, and I'm amazed that we already have 400 followers. So that's really cool. Thank you all so very much who already follow my journey over there.
Right. And that might tie into the amount of people that notice you coming back might tie into who you were before you had a long hiatus or leave, so to speak. So can we get into a little introduction of who you are real quick, when you got into the hobby and how you got into leopard geckos specifically?
Sure. My name is Rebecca. I'm the founder of Dragoon Gecko. I founded Dragoon Gecko in 2007. I have been breeding leopard geckos and keeping since the year 2000, since really my early teenager years, but got into color morphs in 2005. And I'm specialized on line breeding projects and on holding and conservation breeding old and valuable bloodlines for the future. So actually, many of my work that you see today was founded as and can be tracked genetically as early back as 2005, 2007, some of the newer projects, 2012 maybe. But I've working with all of them for some time, and it has been an amazing journey so far.
Wow, so you were in it kind of near the beginning of the blow up of popularity of leopard geckos. What was the first morph that you remember? Like, do you remember when certain albinos came out or white and yellow came out? Can you talk a little bit about like the intrigue and the interest in like these new morphs coming out and when they came to your knowledge?
Sure. I also wanted to spread some infos really quick. So everything that we are talking about here can of course be verified and tracked back. I know information is so important nowadays, and I see many, false informations on the internet or informations that are not really accurate because people don't know better. And I know it's not an easy time because of the many different social media channels and so on and so forth. So everything that we discuss here, and if you want to prove or if you're interested, you can track it back back on geckoforums.net, which was the early source, and I've been an active member on there for many, many years. So many of my projects were, when they launched, they were launched there. And you can also find my work from the past in Leopard Gecko books published. You can also find it published online in some articles, for example, Gecko Time. You hear some of my work discussed in podcasts or showcased in the Leopard Gecko Pro app by Ron Tramper. So just to give you, all of you who've never talked with me before and who've never seen me, just some basic feeling of security that, you know, I'm very open, I'm very transparent, and I'm happy to, of course, answer any questions that you have, what we discuss here.
Oh, awesome.
The early years, oh wow, I think we could fill this whole podcast with talk about the past. It was a totally different world back then. When I got into Leopard Geckos, I just talked about it yesterday. 2005 was my very first ham show, and I went there. I'm from Europe, by the way, so the ham show is the classic and biggest and most known reptile show in whole Europe. So not only Germany, where I'm located, but in whole Europe. So of course I was very lucky that I didn't have to travel so far to get there. But remember, it was 2005. I was still a very, very young, student. I had big dreams, no money, as always. And so it happened that I went to my first ham show, and that was a game changer. Of course, at that time, you couldn't find many informations about leopard geckos. You could find some in the internet. Yes, we had internet, but we didn't have any smartphones. We didn't have Facebook. There was no Instagram, no YouTube, no Snapchat, nothing. So all you could do was buying leopard gecko books where the early mutations of that time were displayed. For example, I knew at that time the albinos were already out there. And they were, quite expensive sometimes still, depending on the combination. Tangerines were coming into style. The first tangerines looked more like pale oranges, and those were the top animals. We were not even near anything electric-like or what we know today. So we are very blessed today to have these animals. At that time, the high yellows were in Germany. They were high end because everything had to be imported straight from US, and there weren't the companies doing that so regularly at that time as well. So for a private person like me, it was almost impossible to get animals. The only way that I had was to look in Europe for breeders who had imported, who had, in fact, invested tons and tons of money to get a shipment of, high-end colored animals over, and then, of course, bred them and sold them over there. So, yeah, I picked up my first, I still remember it was a baldy and a super hypo female, and those were the cream of the top, those were high-end animals, really something that everybody recognized and was like, ooh, and they're so beautiful. And today it's like, yeah, it's like a normal. But at that time, they were quite interesting in Europe. And when I picked them up from the breeders that I bought them from, they came into, we talked a little bit, like always. They're like, oh, you're so young, it's your first time, your first geckos. Yeah, I want to become a leopard breeder just like you, and you're doing such an amazing stuff. And I realized they had just imported the very first raptors that year, 2005, and those were 2 to 3K an animal for one raptor. You paid 200 till 500 bucks for a possible head raptor. You didn't even know if there was raptor in there. It was totally crazy, and people
now everything has raptor in it. Well, in the USA, but yeah.
Yeah, that is an effect that we can talk about later. That's a very interesting side effect, and something that occasionally happens in the leopard gecko scene, that one morph or one mutation becomes so popular that it dominates all others. On the good side, they're everywhere, but on the bad side, they eliminate many, many other valuable bloodlines, which was one of the reasons why I did what I did with Dragoon Gecko years later. But coming back to that one show, we came into talking, and the geckos were delivered not at the show, but at the parking lot before the show. It was totally crazy. It was like the Wild West. Nowadays, you couldn't even do that. It's prohibited. But 2005, honestly, nobody cared. And they were standing there and they opened the trunk and you get suddenly this really bad feeling like, what am I doing here? And
Yeah.
is this trunk full of, legal stuff, or is it full of geckos? I don't know. Let's find out. And it was full of leopard geckos and also animals that they just picked up from the show, from the importer. And I laid my eyes on an animal that I never forgot and that changed my life forever. And it was the very first pure electric male ever imported to Europe. And his name was Saturn. And he looked a lot like today's clowns. In fact, he's the spitting image of that. So he was the very, very first electric, and he was a descendant from Electra, the very first female who gave the name of the bloodline. So all the other electrics.
I might stop you at some topics just because it was on my list to talk about. I would say electric tangerine in America, it's known, but it's not really known so much about. It seems like an older variation of what we would call today, like just like regular lines, Inferno, Blood. I'll tell you, in America, Inferno, Blood, and Mandarin are the main three. And you can probably speak to this, but I kind of feel like a lot of tangerines have their origin from like a similar source. But where did electric come from specifically? I know that's considered kind of like an older high-end line of tangerine, but I know nothing about its origin and stuff.
I'll share a secret with you here that nobody knows.
Okay.
All those lines that you mentioned, at the beginning, they looked very similar from each other. And if you look at them today, what made them so pop is the electric blood in them. The electric was the very first really high-end red gecko. And for my personal experience, I've bred electrics in pure, I've bred crosses, I've done all that. And I love tangerines, and I love the infernos, and I love the bloods, and I love everything about them. No question about that. But in my personal feeling as a breeder, from what I see, pure electrics, you can't beat them. You can't beat a pure electric. When I see how my volcano looked, this was the first male that I imported 2 years later from Kelly herself. We'll come into that later. They are simply amazing, mind-blowing. And just to close the sentence and this part of your question, whenever I see modern tangerine lines, even the tangerine tornado stuff, the modern ones and whatever, I could bet that they all have electric blood because I see the electric shimmer that just the electric line have. As a breeder, you realize differences. And if you're working long enough with a line, you see a hint, a drop of blood in an animal. It's like if you're breeding horses, you will see an Arabic horse, a purebred, you can easily tell apart from, everything else. But if you're really an expert in your field with Arabic horses, you will see the Arabic influence in the shape of the head, in their long legs, in their fine musculature and status. You will see all of that in the animals present. And the same happens here with the electrics and with the tangerines. I see so many lines that look absolutely stunning and beautiful in their own right. And they still are not electrics. They are what they are, their own beauty in their own right. And there's nothing wrong about that. I don't mean that in any criticizing way. On the contrary, it was a good thing. It shows how strong and powerful this one bloodline really is, that it was able to sneak its way into almost all the modern stuff that we have. And they would all not be there where they are today if it weren't for the electrics.
Now, do you know how the original electric was created? Did it come from one breeder, like just outcrossing within their collection and then crossing back for higher oranges, or?
Yes, the electrics originated in the stock of Kelly Hammack of his his
Okay.
reptile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
HISS.
in US. And Kelly was also the leader of Gecko Forums Net at that time, so we have a really good, recollection of what happened, because we all have her posts and her stories and so on. She bred the Neves Tangerine line, which are, to my knowledge, extinct today, unfortunately. Another thing, valuable thing of the past that is lost today, and that I couldn't even, I can't rescue them all. I'm doing my best, and I kept a few, but I can't do it all alone. I'm
What
not
was that
Jurassic Park.
line you said? The Nynx line? Or
Neves Tangerine, because the breeder's name was Neves.
And in the US or in
In the
EU?
States, yes.
Okay.
So she bred those Neves Tangerines and did her own thing, as every breeder probably does, and was giving her own touch into things. And then all of a sudden she had a spontaneous mutation, and an animal popped up that looked very much like the high clown stuff that you see today. She was red with purple and black spots, and her name was Electra. So that
Wow.
was the origin of the line. And the electrics are a perfect example of what happens in line breeding, how you can change the shape and form of a project, and also how the project takes over a life of its own. As I said, Saturn, the male that I set eyes on and that I deeply fell in love with, was bought by Gecko Galaxen and imported to Europe in 2005. And he was the closest descendant till today. He's still the closest living descendant to the original animal, Electra. So I fell in love with this gecko. Saturn had dark blue eyes as a juvenile. He faded into silver, but this is something that I haven't seen since the amber eye occurred, and this was 2005. And this animal had such an intelligent expression, amazing colors, and all this. He looked nothing like a modern electric, but he had this red and yellow jungle look with green. It was just amazing. You can find him on my homepage, and I probably show some pictures on Instagram. But unfortunately, Instagram doesn't like pictures anymore, so I have to count on my reels to get some
You just
notice.
said something really powerful right there that a lot of people don't realize. If you want to grow on Instagram right now, reels is the way to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would rather show pictures, because this is how you can educate people. I mean, look at this first electric ever imported to Europe. So, by the way, fun story, but I go into that in another podcast, because that is a story of its own. I fell deeply in love with this gecko. He changed everything for me, and I knew what I wanted. I wanted to breed those high-end animals, and I was breeding fish and guppies and Siamese fighting fish for standard and for show, for competition, years back. So at that time, I sold all of my fish tanks. I gave everything away so that I could build up, a strong foundation. And over 10 years later, I was able to purchase Saturn and get him back into my colony. And he's now living with me, and he will stay there forever.
Wow. Now,
But
you are... yeah, go ahead.
So he's the one side of the electric. I mean, I have few offspring of him available, so he's not the dominant type. The dominant type is Volcano. I purchased Volcano, the all red animal. So of course, Kelly, the originator, she continued to breed with her line, and her descendants of Electra turned out solid orange. So that's what she was aiming for. That was her breeding goal. And those electrics were stunning. And this is what I call the Volcano line. And the other thing that looks a little bit more, like with this green and yellow colors and lavender colors, those are what I call the Saturn line. So we have those two different types of electric that 90% of the people that even know about electrics don't know about. And Volcano, the newer male, he became actually the foundation male of many, many electrics in Europe, because, of course, I was the first one to work with this kind of electric type in Europe. And over the years, I was able to acquire more and more of her pure breeding stuff, and was able to build up the biggest gene pool in Europe for many, many years. And still, I have the biggest collection in Europe and one of the biggest collection of pure originated electrics in the whole world.
How many geckos do you work with right now?
The exact number is a secret. I have to say, but yeah, we have approximately between 100 and 200, I would say.
So
But
you're
so
still a large
I'm very
group.
small. I'm in US. I'm very small. In Europe, I'm pretty big. But
Yeah.
I'm a hobbyist breeder, so and my concept is totally different. So what I do and what separates me maybe from you know the kind of breeding that I did many years before my hiatus is that nowadays Dragoon Gecko is not your average gecko breeder producing geckos for selling. So I did that many years. I enjoyed that many years. It was a wonderful experience. But nowadays, I really want to follow my passion, and I have slimmed down my collection quite a bit to my core projects. And what I'm doing today is Dragoon Gecko is indeed a home base for a holy grail keeper, a safe haven for all those beautiful rare lines that would be lost otherwise. So that's the focus of my work over there.
So you think that, because I know people are going to ask you this, it's already happening in the chat. Are you going to mass produce these high quality animals for sale, or hold on to them like a museum where they could just be like kind of displayed?
I'm not interested in becoming a mass breeder, because first of all, the animal welfare was always a very important point for me. I was a former student of veterinary medicine, so I always cared deeply about animals and how they are treated. And that was also what made me quickly realize in the very beginning, to hop back to that timeline, that for many people, maybe not for you, maybe not for me, but for many people that come to a clinic every day, an animal is worth what they pay for. So if the treatment costs $500, you don't see $20 animals treated for $500 so often. And that made me so sad. So I had to find a strategy. I knew I couldn't change people, and I knew that I couldn't fight against windmills and make people a bad conscience. I just knew that I had to change what I could change. And that was the way that I approached things. So I focused on really high-end animals to sell them for a price that ensures me that people think about whether they want to care for this animal or not, and that they value their animals enough to give them the support and veterinary treatment they deserve, basically. And I want to stay true to that. But on the other hand, I'm getting so many questions and requests from people who are really into breeding, who really want to change something, who are really passionate and already doing good work or having the best chances, the future generation, and are very motivated. And I don't want to hold on this genetic library and just use it for myself. It would be my greatest joy to see that the lines that I worked so hard for and holding would be of use to the gecko community. So we will do a little bit in between, but things will always go different at my place. So you can't just go on the website and see some animals available, because we don't have normally animals available. We don't produce so much, and we hold back most of them for ourselves, for our conservation breeding program. What you can do is you can go on my Instagram, and in the highlight section, you will find our email newsletter where you can sign in, and then you'll be notified whenever animals are available, and then you get first pick, of course. And this is how we make sure to get those animals to the right people, and that we can estimate how many animals we produce. If we only have, for example, 50 people on the list, I won't produce 200 geckos, of course. So I really try to, make it different and make it easier for us and easier for the animals. And I feel this is a good way, and it has proven to be quite effective. People are reacting very positively on this method, and they are more than willing to wait a little for the right animals, which is making me very thankful. So thanks to all who have patience and trust in me.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to go, I think, nowadays, where leopard geckos are really mass produced. And my apologies, I didn't mean to say mass produce in the sense of like thousands of geckos a year. I just meant, are you going to release any, like 50 to 100 over the course of the next couple of years or something? But it sounds like you'll kind of do that at your own pace and your own desire.
Yes, sure.
And also to specific people. You probably just won't release it to anybody. You want to kind of research who the person is. But yeah, on that topic real quick, you know, I can also definitely tell people, and this goes for any reptile, the amount of money and time it takes to feed a low-end animal and care for a low-end animal is the same as a high-end animal, except you're not going to get as much out of it financially in a return. So you're going to want to produce more, and it's going to just stress you out more. So working on the higher end but less animals instead of on the lower end but more volume is not only better for the hobby, but it's going to be better for you as an individual. You're going to get more joy out of it, and the animals won't, you know, suffer as much going anywhere for cheap prices. But yeah, that's a whole topic in of itself. But this is really, really interesting stuff because I'm newer to the breeder scene. Like my first leopard gecko was probably in the early 2000s, but I was just a kid with a pet. I didn't actually start researching the breeding side of things probably until like 2015, 2016. And at that time, I didn't run into who you were because things had already moved on from like the gecko forums and stuff more to like YouTube and stuff like that, you know? So like nowadays people are more on YouTube as far as trying to research information and stuff like that. But to me, I thank you so much because it's really awesome to hear from people. I'm looking at one of your posts right now. I used to watch David of David's Fine Geckos on YouTube because he was on YouTube. And I see that you did a podcast with him a while ago. Do you have a good relationship with him then? Was he one of the breeders you were really close to?
Yeah, David is a fantastic person and a great breeder. And he invited me to a podcast one day, and I had no idea that many would follow. And we did some really cool roundtable discussions with Ron Tremper, Marshall McGuinness. That was really a highlight and a great honor for me, being the first and until now the only, you know, European gecko breeder having this big roundtable discussions with actually the best known gecko breeders around there in the States. So that was a huge honor to me. And it also taught me so many things. There were so many things that I learned from this podcast as a person, as a breeder. So that is a wonderful experience that I will always cherish. And I still think today that the newer reptile podcasts that followed after Gecko Nation, they are so important for our community. We have a unique chance to, over different mediums like this chat here live on YouTube and on Instagram and on podcasts, we have to use all channels possible to get the message across, to let people know that they are not alone, that there is, you know, a way to breed ethically. There is a way to get your name out in the gecko community, and there is a way to present yourself and your work where you be respected and well known and well liked, and you don't have to, you know, go follow the dark side. So there's many cool options that you have, and also get inspired by what other breeders do. Every time I go on the internet, I get inspired even by newcomers on their creative ideas and how they take on things. There's always something new to learn and something you can take as a valuable input for your own breeding projects.
Now, just kind of closing the door on the electric side of things real quick. I wanted to ask this question before I forget. It's kind of hypothesized in you're familiar with the Black Knight leopard gecko, right?
I am. They are from Europe.
Real quick.
So I probably saw the first ones long before you guys even knew they were there.
You know, this is blowing my mind because you don't have to say how old you are, but you look so young to have so much experience. And it could just be good genetics or good skin or whatever on your end, but you are
genetics. I'm old. I'm 37. I was born in 85.
Oh, wow. Okay, so as a 37-year-old, though, you have to realize most people don't have the experience you have as a 37-year-old. Like, you were in this, you said, since you were 13 or since your young teens. Most people don't have that experience. Like, for me, example, I didn't get into breeding leopard geckos till I was like 27. I was always into reptiles, but breeding and focusing on like the quality, the ethics, whatever goes into breeding, I didn't actually start getting into that till I was 27. You know what I mean? But so like, and we have a bunch of our followers that are kind of the age that you got in, like 13, 14 even. And it's just kind of amazing to see the younger generation taking hold of that so early, because I was just focused on school and sports or whatever else was going on. I didn't dive into it as deep until later on in life. But I always had a really big passion, like deep down in my heart, for reptiles. It just never fully came out till I was like older. Closing the door.
What's the theory?
Closing the door on Electric Tangerine. The theory on Black Knight is that Black Knight is really the only promoted dark melanistic line publicly right now. I'm sure people are working with charcoal and black pearl and stuff like that. But as far as what gets the promotion, it's all Black Knight. Like if you go on, you guys have MorphMarket, right? And stuff like that. Now, the theory that I heard was that whether it was because of inbreeding or whatever the case was, Black Knight holds its color longer and deeper and richer than charcoal, black pearl, all that kind of stuff. I've seen some great examples of charcoal and black pearl and stuff. Why do you think Black Knight is the more popular, dominant, marketed one versus these other ones? And that ties into Electric Tangerine. Do you believe Electric Tangerine was so high quality because it was luck of certain animals popping out in that line, or because of heavy inbreeding of constant, related family members? How replicatable is that, or is it just luck? If you kind of understand what I'm getting at.
Those are two different topics, but I'm trying to touch on both of them. So first of all, interesting fun fact: I visited Lottitz, which is a famous gecko breeder in Sweden, and she was the founder of the Black Pearl. So there are still some photos of me in the internet as a young, ugly teenager with glasses, and on my shoulder sits Blackie, the very first Black Pearl. So maybe I'll share those pictures on my Instagram one day.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for it.
So then you can see that I'm not that young anymore. But yeah, I saw her and I talked a lot with her. In fact, Lottitz was the first one in 2007 who entrusted me with one of her complete projects. Dragoon Gecko has, just so that you guys can follow, Dragoon Gecko has in the past years taken over several projects, for example, the neon bells and stuff, but also, of course, the first project that I took over completely from another breeder was Artling's Gecko's Maxno Ghost Jungles. And this was the first really outcry on a positive note. How can you say that the first bombshell that dropped in gecko forms at that time, because nobody was really interested in ghosts. They came from LXU, Ray Hine, blah, blah, blah. We're not going into ghosts, so don't worry. But what I want to say is,
we will later go into that.
I took over this whole project, and therefore I visited her and I saw her complete breeding facility. I saw all the animals, also the black animals. I talked with her and I got a good overview. I was very young back then, but I still remember what I saw. And with the knowledge that I have today, I can say for some certainty that the whole melanistic projects, they behave similar. It's a polygenetic trait, which means that more than one gene is responsible for the dark pigmentation for melanism. And that means basically that you have to do line breeding. So of course, what we figured out over the years, and also what I saw when I seeing the first Black Knights, they were the most inbred. So of course, they were the really darkest ones at that time. And they were also professionally promoted in comparison to the other lines. You have to see that those other lines were in the hands of more or less private breeders who thought that they don't need really a marketing strategy, and they didn't want to promote their lines to the whole world or sell it off to some big gecko breeder and make money. It was a project of heart for them. And Roy is a very cool guy, and I don't know him in person, but I heard good things about him. But he was also a little bit overwhelmed, and he gave the promotional part away to another partner who was really good in marketing. So what he did was he spammed everything. Every source that you can imagine, he spammed with the Black Knight. And the Black Knight, they are amazing. They are really cool. But
Wait,
of course,
real quick then, did the Black Knight come from the Black Pearl lineage and then was inbred to become its own thing and marketed?
I'm not the Oracle of Delphi. I have to trust information that's given to me. Unfortunately, I wish I could take this Hogwarts course, and unfortunately, without gene tests in leopard geckos, we will never know.
We almost do have gene testing though in the States. I don't know if you know, they're working on it.
I'm currently in contact with them, and I'm trying to push, a fundraising project. I'm not sure if we can do it for Christmas. That would be a dream come true for me to do this, but we have to see what's possible. Things take time. So that's one of the reasons why I really want to stress the importance of gene tests in leopard geckos. We really need to move forward to the next level. And that's another topic that we could fill a whole podcast. So first,
real quick,
coming back to the black ones. Sorry.
Can people donate to this fund that you're trying to raise? Is it like a GoFundMe or?
It will be a GoFundMe, but I need some time to set it up, and I also need the permission because I don't want this on my private account. I need to figure out how to do this in the most responsible way.
If you let me know when that time comes, I will promote the heck out of it and blast it, because I'm sure a lot of people would love that.
This is our future, guys. And as soon as it's ready, I'm ready to make a podcast just about this topic and tell you all the details. So that would be amazing.
We'll circle back to that for sure.
And we really go into detail there. So this is definitely some hot, cool topic with many variable insights. But going back to the melanistic ones, I have to say that I'm not working with melanistic morphs per se, not in that way. So I really like to stick, when it comes to my personal experiences, to the projects that I work with for many, many years. So what I can give you is my feeling, not a certainty. Yeah. So without gene tests, we never know if they all come from the same source. Fact is that one of my earliest wild bloodline projects popped up some dark animals, and her name was Smokey. She's still on my website. She wasn't as dark as the Black Knights and Black Pearl stuff, but she was quite dark. And I kept her and her offspring for some time, and I realized how hard it is to do this from scratch. And years later, at that time, nobody was interested in melanistics. And this was probably an unrelated line. And you know what I did?
Yeah.
I gave it away for free to one of my friends, and never.
Are they still in the hobby, or?
No, they're not in the hobby. They're not in the hobby, and they sold them further. I requested. It's that train is.
Are you close with like Fairy from the Netherlands? We only know him as like Fairy from the Netherlands as the Black Knight guy, or Echo Geckos is kind of the public face of Black Knight, because Fairy, the creator of Black Knight that we're told, doesn't speak English very well. So Echo Geckos does speak English very well, so he kind of markets it.
Yeah. So, he was giving that was what I was trying to say. Ferry was giving the promotion of the Black Knight stuff away to other hands, so he outsourced that, and other breeders just kept a little bit more to themselves. I don't think there is the one thing is right or the one thing is wrong. Both things are totally fine. It's just a personal decision whether you want to breed them in a bigger scale. And if you're a professional breeder, of course you need to make promotion, you need to sell the animals. But if you're just a hobby breeder, then of course I can understand if somebody says, okay, I don't really want to promote this, and the people who know, they know. So that was probably the reason behind it. But what I want to say, of course, the Black Knights were heavily inbred at some point, which is understandable because you have to go somewhere. And as we see today, it's not really that big of a problem because you can easily outcross them. And so many people have done it and produced beautiful stuff that is totally healthy and fine and striving. So when I realized when the first raptors came out in Europe, that was a raptor hatchling. It was
Oh, wow. Really
half
tiny.
the size and half dead when it crawled out of the egg. And you were like, what is this? Do I really want to breed this? And
Right.
nowadays, our raptor lines, they are double the size than the normals. They
Yeah.
are so strong. They're so fertile. So, of course, sometimes, not always, some projects can be more inbred to a point that you see some problems occurring in the first phase. But that is to be expected. The look has to come from somewhere, and with enough time and another dedicated breeders, it's definitely a problem that you can manage. What you don't want to do is, of course, that you inbreed further and further and further until the line declines. So I think we're on a very good path nowadays with what I see with the Black Knight stuff. So yeah.
Now, as far as tying that into the electric real quick, those really high-end examples that you noticed that came out of, I think you said it came from Hiss and from Kelly and stuff like that, right? Did you say? Was that heavily replicatable, or was
Yes.
those like one-offs, you know?
It was highly it's totally different from what I saw with the Black Pearl and Melanistic stuff. Sometimes you just have I don't want to say a spontaneous mutation because we don't know for sure, but
Yeah.
sometimes you have this one animal who becomes a founder of a whole new line, trait, whatever you want to call it. And those animals give away their markers so dominantly in every generation and the generation after that you do not rely on heavy inbreeding. And the same happened here with the electrics, which is why Volcano became the founding father of the European electrics, or one of the most influential, and certainly one of the most influential electric males around the globe, because he was so consistent in his offspring. You could pair him with whatever crossed your mind, and it always resulted in amazing, mind-blowing offspring. And even the offspring, when I outcrossed them, of course you could see some pattern variations, but you could really see that this uniqueness, this redness, this color brilliancy, it kept true. And this is a really rare occurrence, and this really caught my eye. And that is one of the reasons why I was immediately hooked with the electrics, and my love for them has never faded ever since, because you can see even in the far crosses, even in the bloodlines that are now sold as this or that, I don't want to name the lines now. It's on I think it's more positive side. They really benefited from this strong possibility of the electrics to improve their unique look. They didn't override the look from other lines, but they just added to this color brilliancy. And I think, in my opinion, this is the best whatever can happen to you. If you have a beautiful tangerine line and you cross the electrics into it, the right ones, and you make them really pop, bingo. That's cool. It's
Yeah, we
still your
have
line.
one of our followers too. I'm starting to touch base with more. I don't know if you ever heard of her, but Denise Ray of, I think, Golden Gecko out here in the United States. I'm starting to talk to her more now too, because like you and her have been around for 20 years in the hobby, and it's really interesting to see how things evolved. I think I read in a Ron Tremper book, or it's just kind of like general knowledge out there, that the original tangerine, because no geckos came out orange from the wild, right? But the original tangerine started with like small orange, a spot or spotting, and then that developed into what we have today. I heard you mention earlier that there was like a dominant tangerine. Are you saying there's a difference between tangerine on a polygenetic level and then tangerine on a dominant level, where it's actually turning the gecko more of an orange hue versus a yellow hue, which is their natural color? Or are you saying it's all tied to line breeding for tangerine?
That is impossible to say. What we
Yeah.
know in science, from a scientific standpoint, we know nothing about the leopard gecko genome. And in fact, I know that we even have today a high quality, detailed whole genome of the leopard gecko. So this is really what we have to change as future breeders and generations. We need to dive deep. We need to find out, Are there different markers, maybe genetic markers on the genome for certain orange traits? If we find out, then we know how far we can push, you know? This is a whole eye opener. This is like getting glasses when you have been blind before. We only can test so much. We only can do try and error, and it's so exhausting, and it takes a lot and lot of time. And I've bred lavenders for as long as I can remember, and I still don't hatch out the all purple geckos every season. So it's frustrating. If it wouldn't be for the love of this color, I would have given up this project long, long, long ago, and so many others. And it's in breeding, it's so often one step forward, two step backwards. But the fact is, with proper genetic testing, as it's currently happening in the ball python scene, we can do a difference. We can see instead of assume. We can do instead of dream. And that's what I like.
We're going to move on to the lavender and like ghost stuff here in a second. Before we do, I just want to hit on another topic real quick, because we were talking about dominance. There's a little bit of debate in the community whether hypo is straight polygenetic, meaning just line bred for lack of pigment, or if there's also a dominant form of it. Do you have any input as far as that, or it's just going to rely on genetic testing at the end of the day?
The problem with genetics is that they're getting more and more complex the deeper you dive into it. So what we know is that we know there are dominant mutations like the Maxno, right? You have a normal and you have a Maxno. All of a sudden, you just have one. It's like Adam and Eve. They just pop out of nowhere. They're just there. Yeah. And after this first animal, this spontaneous mutation, probably you get half of your offspring Maxnos, and they will always be Maxno. You can breed them for 20 years, 30 years. You can cross them into whatever you like. But if you cross Maxno to non-Maxno, half of your babies will always be Maxno, right? So that's that's the easy part. Now comes the different part. When you're doing line breeding, like myself, and I'm specialized on line breeding, you're depending on the size of your gene pool, depending on the coefficient of inbreeding, the amount of inbreeding in your gene pool, depending on the genes you're working with, you get totally different results, first of all. Second of all, when you're working with a line over many, many years, you can stack up the genes. It's like you have to see it like a poker game, okay? You're stacking your cards. You throw away the bad ones when you don't know what's in front of you. So you just pick a card, and if you like it, you keep it, and if you don't like it, you put it away, right? So that's what we breeders do. We are stacking our cards, and round and round and round and round after round, we're getting more and more valuable cards into our collection. So, and that is the point when a polygenetic trait can behave like dominant. So suddenly you see, even when you outcross, you see a dominant percentage. You see half of the babies having this trait, having that, and then you're totally confused. And you're like, what on Gecko Earth name is going on here? So
just to give a quick example of that, I had bold stripes in my operation, and I'm sure you're familiar with bold stripes. I bred bold stripes to non-bold stripes and popped out bold stripes just because of the dominance of the polygenetic line breeding that's gone into that bold stripe. Just to give people an example of what you're talking about by stacking the cards genetically, moving backwards.
So you can use this knowledge to your advantage, but on the other hand, you can see that also the stripes and the reverse stripes, you can breed them for years and you can't, really produce them consistently. There seem to be other polygenetic factors in play when it comes to the expression of stripe versus reverse stripe. I'm watching this for years with a ghost, for example. I can never tell you if I have a reverse stripe. Some years I just have reverse stripes, and some years I just have stripes.
Is reverse stripe always attached to eclipse? Like het eclipses to me always seem to be the reverse stripe ones, but that's because I work heavily with eclipse. Do you have animals that are not het for eclipse, but still reverse stripe?
Interesting. I never thought about that, honestly. But I will look into that.
Okay.
Good question. I don't know yet, but I will find out.
Okay, awesome. Well, we can kind of segue into some fun stuff that I know, and it's kind of festive, right? If you like Christmas, we'll head into snow right now. We'll talk about some of the lavender projects and expressions that you have. What's becoming, it's kind of interesting because you're in the European market, and what's popular and trending there might be different than what's popular and trending in the American market. But for the longest time, Albie Snow was ignored in the American market, but now it's actually starting to catch more buzz. It just got updated onto MorphMarket as an official like gene. Now I heard there's a dominant Albie and a line-bred Albie. I know we were just talking about it's hard to prove that kind of stuff, but let's open the door to Albie and just start talking about it. What do you know about Albie, and what do you love about it?
Oh my gosh, this is a topic for another podcast. But I got into Albase. I think let me look at my notes here. 2012. I'm really bad with years and numbers, guys. So please forgive me, but I made my notes so I don't talk
real quick.
untrue
Let me
things.
just show an Albie real quick. It's on your page.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody saw it. Beautiful animal. What are we looking at there? There's stripes. There's purple. Is that a dominant Albie? Is that a line-bred Albie? What? Talk to us.
Without a gene test, we will never know. And I'm repeating myself over here. I hate to say that, but if you're taking it from a scientific standpoint, I've actually talked with Albay himself because I was curious. I knew that those theories came up, and I certainly can see the reason why people would believe there are two different lines of Albays. I'm open for everything. I know that I know nothing, so sometimes that's the wiser approach in breeding, to be humble and to be open for everything instead of saying, oh yeah, I breed them so long, I know they're this or they're that. So I can tell you, for example, I can't tell you everything about all Albays. I can tell you exactly my findings in my breeding facility, with my genetics, with the animals that I acquired as a base. It can be that another breeder's findings with another animal that comes from another genetic background is totally different. And that's what's all about here in breeding. This is not, kindergarten where one size fits all. This is complex talking and an educated, conversation about possibilities. And the possibilities in genetics are endless, guys. And that's what got me hooked into geckos in the first place, and what will never let me go. So it's not as easy as we often think. It can be, yeah, sure. Sometimes my Albays, they surely behave like dominants, and they also look like the dominant line of the Albays. So if I had to choose one side, I would probably link my animals more to what is called dominant Albay snows. But if they really are dominant or line-bred, I can say for sure, because in every generation I get animals like this beautiful reverse striped Albie that I also showed on Instagram. She has small spots of white. She's definitely a snow. She's not a normal, but she's not a snow either. She has yellow pigments and she has white pigments all in one gecko. That's crazy. But that's how it is. That's what I would call a low-end Albay snow.
I was looking for her right now.
Let me see. One video.
This her, is she?
No, that's a Max snow.
Okay. Anyway, it's on your page somewhere. If someone wants to look through your page, they can see.
It's a video with two geckos. It's a video where I open my hands and you see two geckos in there. One is the Albays high-end snow, and the other is the low-end.
One of your recent videos.
Yeah, it's one of the recent videos. So maybe we'll find it later.
I'll show this real quick. This is how I found you. That one's pretty cool. I think that was the video. I mean, me finding you was completely random. Let me just say this, and I was telling people this on another live stream of mine, is, you have way more knowledge and experience and respect than I do in the hobby. But the reason I just never came across your stuff, right? And when you commented like on one of my pictures, I always try to give a generosity comment back to somebody who comments if I can. And I commented to you and I was just like, oh, thank you. And then you commented back and you were like, which one's your favorite? And it was that one where like the gecko has a heart on it and stuff. And I'm so busy. When I originally sent you the comment back, I didn't even soak in what I was looking at. I was like, oh, it's a snow. It's an albino snow. I'm just moving through my routine of thanking people and talking to people, just to start communication. But when you messaged back, I was like, let me take a second look. So I actually read your description and I read what these animals were, and I read your history of, hey, my name is Rebecca. I've been gone for a long time, but I'm back now. And I was like, hold on. We got a diamond in the rough here. Like, I did not know who this person was, but they definitely know what they're talking about. And they got some knowledge that even I'm not privy to. So let me take a second look. And I picked one that was my favorite. And that kind of got a deeper conversation rolling through us. But yeah, I'm appreciative that you commented back, because that's what kind of spurred me to take a second look. And that's just an example for everybody of how communication can help, develop friendships or relationships and open up doors that you previously didn't think. So take the time to talk and communicate with each other.
Definitely. And this is one of our most challenging parts of gecko breeding nowadays, guys. I mean, I don't want to, ramble about the old times were always better. They were not. Every time has its advantages and disadvantages. And I'm very thankful for my mobile phone and for Instagram and Facebook and all the other beautiful ways and the cool apps to make cool video clips and all the possibilities that I've never had before. But when I started breeding, you knew who your other peers were. Yeah. And you knew that because there was just imagine today, there would be one site, one place, the Hall of Fame, where everybody gathered. It was like, for me, I was no one when I entered there. And for me, it was like entering Hollywood. There were all those big names, like, I don't know. Yeah, you name it. Ron Tremper, Kelly Hammock, and Dan the Fireman, and
David's Fine Geckos.
That was way later, but at the very beginning, they were. But yeah, of course, he also got known for his stuff, and
that just shows you how deep the leopard gecko hobby goes. Because to me, David of David's Fine Geckos, he's one of the oldest YouTubers besides like Ron Tremper and Matt Baronic of Sassleback Reptiles. Those were the Hollywood people to me, but the Hollywood people to them goes way further back, right? And that's really cool because who the Hollywood people to the Hollywood people is. And even at your relatively young age, that's amazing that you have that much knowledge,
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this knowledge I owe this knowledge to gecko forums, basically, because there was one place where everybody gathered, and if you had a question, 2, 3, 5 people were quick to answer this question, and you could also do research. I could, for example, type in Always Lion-bred Snow, and then I would see who's working with them now, who worked with them in the past, what is the information given. And if somebody in the internet told me, oh, Always Snow are like Max Snow, I could check in gecko forums, is this true or false? And I had an answer within seconds. So nowadays it gets so complicated because you have all the splitter groups. You don't have all people at one place. And that makes it so challenging for people to even do proper research. I don't blame them. I heard, a YouTuber talking about raptors, and he's so fascinated with it, and he's doing so great video stuff, and he was like, I don't know what the patternless in raptor means. Is it a Murphy patternless? And I was like, no, and it shocked me so much that this common knowledge is not available. Yeah. It's not his fault, it's not your fault as newer breeders that you don't get this information. The times have become different. The times are different, and you need much more research, and you have to rely sometimes on people where you don't have any chances to verify what they are saying. So this makes matters really complicated. So I don't think it's an easy task getting on the right information nowadays. So that was also why I really cherish, channels like here where people are educated and can come together and we can talk about things and questions can be answered and also proven in one way or the other. So hopefully this helps to shed some light on some mysteries and also gives people, new perspective on things.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I'm sure you're aware of, every hobby carries politics and drama, right? And because leopard geckos has been around for so long, a little bit of what's happened is like cliques have formed in certain areas, and that's kind of segregated the knowledge of everyone coming together. I truly would love to see all of the top experienced people do a little bit more like collaboration together and stuff like that. And you probably don't know me very much, but I caught a lot of heat coming into the leopard gecko hobby because I was a quote unquote newer breeder that was actually putting out YouTube content and trying to promote leopard geckos. And a lot of the old school mentality was, we should just do this behind closed doors. Like, you shouldn't be releasing this knowledge publicly. You shouldn't be talking about it if you haven't been around that long. And it just created a lot of friction right off the bat. And I think that friction kind of lingers around the whole hobby. There's other live streams besides my channel that have way fewer viewers than my channel does. And I want to collaborate with those guys. I want to work together with those guys. But because of certain things and disagreements that they have with me, they reject that, and they reject the audience that I communicate to. So my point is, I think that the inclusivity of people working together, I think, is worth more than the minor differences and arguments that we have amongst each other. And YouTube is the platform now. It's no longer forums and stuff like that. So like, people need to migrate to YouTube and collaborate together. And that's what's happened in the ball python world. You have all the top breeders in the ball python world that are constantly communicating with each other and promoting each other on YouTube. And some of them do have some minor arguments and stuff behind the scenes. But for the most part, they put that aside and they work together for the common cause of knowledge for the hobby and the newer keeper. So anyway, that's what I would love to see for the leopard gecko world. I don't know how possible that is or if it's going to become possible, but I thank you for taking that step with us and being on our show and bringing your knowledge. And
let me breach in right here. This is something that this is probably the most important aspect of, and my most important point in this interview. And this is also the opinion that I, express since day one. I'm neutral. I'm like Switzerland. I am taking nobody's side. My message is to spread the love for this amazing hobby and, share a positive light outside our hobby, on our work. And most of all, I think nowadays, my passion is in educating people. So I will go where the people go. And I don't care if, people have minor disagreements or whatever. You can all figure that out for yourself. I'm nice. We're all grown up and we're all nice. And this is not about us and me and my ego or my opinion. And honestly, what we need in this community definitely is some kind of just respect each other. I mean, there are so many breeders doing wonderful work. I might not be best friends with everybody because not everybody might find me as, nice and best body material as the other. But this doesn't matter. It matters that we all love our animals. It matters that we all work hard. And as you said, as the ball python world, we need to professionalize the hobby if we want to survive, especially in, playtime is over. I hate to say that. US ARC and others, and also the DGHT in Germany, they are fighting so hard for our rights. And today, you know what? I got the worst possible news today. Germany's biggest platform of, how can you say that, where you can sell or sell things.
Yeah, like
You're
online thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they prohibit to sell leopard geckos and reptiles all together, and you are only allowed to sell dogs up to who are older than 1 year without an official permission by by the law.
Wow.
This is crazy. This has
Yeah.
gone overhand. If your neighbor gets some puppies and you want to help them and you want to sell those puppies, you
You
can't do
can't
this there.
advertise it. Can you
No,
do
you
it
can't.
behind the scenes, or you can't do it at all? Right.
There are so many people outside our hobby who have nothing better to do than to look at the most vulnerable people and scenes they can tackle. It's not about reptiles. Most of those people don't even know reptiles. They have never hold a snake. They've never hold a gecko. And this is my personal experience also as a former student of veterinary medicine. There are so amazing people out there who really care about animals and are working for animal shelters and doing all they can and really collaborate with you. And even in dog and cats, there are those people who are in the animal welfare business just for trolling. It's what it is. It's like a religion. You can have your agenda and everybody is on your side or is against you. So please realize that we are living in very challenging times, especially over social media, where it can spread quickly. This is a great chance. And it's also great responsibility. We need to come together. No matter if you like people personally or not, we are all sharing and we are all united by the love for our team Reptile. So let's fight for this. Yeah, let's fight for
Yeah.
this. Let's respect each other for what we are. We are hardworking people who love their animals and do their best to, breed them on high quality, ethically, and get people informed. So this should be our focus, and it has to be if we don't want to face the consequences.
Well, I'd vote for you for president of that organization if it comes about one day. But you bring up a good point for we do like to. I'm starting to make it a point to advertise USARK a little bit more right now, because in America, USARK, which their link is right here in the bottom ticker, you can see it's at USARK_official. If you become a member of theirs, it could be as cheap as like $3 to $4 a month. And membership is very, very key, because membership shows the government that we have a big hobby. We have a big community. So what's better? Donating money is great. If you want to donate $1,000, that's great. But what's even comparable good to that is becoming a member, because becoming a member will show the government that we have numbers and that our hobby is important. And you said for you guys over there, you have a similar organization to protect reptile rights in Germany, which is struggling right now. I mean, I think the whole world is really fighting against a lot of pets, not just reptile, but like pet rights. You know?
And it's really concerning me on a
Yeah.
very deep level. It's disturbing to see how far people go in order to, as I've seen today, even limit our possibilities to sell dogs and cats. I never thought they would lay their hands on the dog and cat industry, but they do.
A lot of people were like, they're coming after reptiles because they'll never touch dogs and cats. They're too popular. But if they're starting to over there, they're not really doing that here in America yet. But if they're starting to, that's the start of what could potentially ripple effect happen everywhere around the world. So getting back to the lavender stuff, would you say that like all of your lavender project, is that the overarching umbrella of like your albi snow stuff, your ghost stuff, other snow stuff? Or let's talk about all of that if you want a little bit, like the ghost versus the albi versus other lavender stuff that you got going on, you know?
I started line breeding leopard geckos for lavender color in 2005, and it was basically one of the first projects. And those animals got better and better over time because, of course, you select the best ones who hold the coloration. And I was working with a broader gene pool. I was, working with different groups and trying to build up different gene pools and bloodlines in order to get too far into inbreeding. And then I used these animals basically from different projects to improve my lavender pimp, so to say, to pimp my other geckos, to pimp the ghosts and the albae stuff and so on and so forth. And basically, yeah, this very old bloodline gave birth this year to the old purple gecko. So that's amazing.
The all purple gecko. Do you mean that does that hold into adulthood, or like?
I don't know. It just hatched. You can see it on my Insta.
wait. I gotta look at this. Hold on. All purple.
It's the video with the three. It's the video with the 3 little geckos, or maybe one of the last videos.
Video, right, where you're like concealing them.
I have to see. It's one of the last videos. It got quite some views. I have to see.
We'll find this for sure. World's first Albi Snow Montanus ghost. We're going to talk about some wild type stuff a little bit. Albi's
in the second row. It's in the second row. It's just that one gecko.
Oh, after 15 years of inbreeding, I finally
line breeding, not inbreeding.
Sorry.
I beg to differ.
Yes, there is a difference. Yeah, for sure.
There's a huge difference.
So you finally had. Now, is that gecko that we're looking at? Does that have snow or anything in it, or is it just line breeding success?
The exact recipe, I beg your pardon, will stay secret for now. Because I still have to see. I still have to see how it develops and if it holds the color or not. And I want to also, before I would, give out any certain claims about this, I would definitely need to breed another 3 generations or so, probably. So we are just at the very, very beginning. But this is so cool because I've dreamed about this since I was a very young kid, and it was really hard. And finally having this animal right after birth, where you see that could be the gecko you've been waiting for, and after a few sheds, then really starting to glow up like it did. That's one of those magical moments that rewards me for so many failures and hard times and step backs. And that's...
Well, we'll definitely follow your progress. So anyone who's not following at Dragoon Gecko, you can follow the progress of Rebecca with her snow lines, her electric lines. Oh, real quick, I know I said I closed the door on electric, but this just came to mind. What do you think about the Red Devil, which came from electric, from the Korean breeder? Are you aware of his marketing of the Red Devil, claiming
not
that it came
really
from electric? So,
I heard the name.
It's a marketing thing, I think, but he claims that his Red Devil, which is electric bell lineage, he remarketed it as the Red Devil to create some buzz. I mean, from a business perspective, people understand that, but I was just wondering if you happen to know who he was or seen it or what you thought about it, but it doesn't sound like you know who he is. So
if he would buy me a ticket to Korea, I would definitely go check it out.
Yeah.
That's no problem. But unfortunately, Korea is not even close to Germany, so I'm afraid I won't be able to visit him for some time. But I would really love to. It's actually projects like that that really are interesting to see and to watch. And if he really succeeded in breeding electrics into belts without producing double heads, then he has my highest, regards. So that's the problem. I was very hesitant to cross any of my electrics into my bell stuff because without a gene test, I just don't feel comfortable because I know what I know.
Yeah.
Nothing. You can test breed as much as you want, but you will never get the certainty instead of the simple and clear genetic test.
There was a breeder over here that was speaking recently where he was trying to create an eclipse-free line, right? Because eclipse is almost in everything. And he said on the 70th baby, it produced an eclipse. Now, do you think that the odds could have been that bad? Or do you think that the DNA possibly could have even remutated to create the eclipse gene?
No.
You think the odds could be that bad?
We've talked about this. This is also, the biggest factor why I'm for gene testing. We have the problem that right now, let's start at the beginning. we have the situation that we, like in the ball python market, there are lots of different, mutations, bloodlines, whatever. So the leopard gecko scene gets more and more complex. This offers amazing opportunities for us. And this is the reason why we love this little bugger so, so very much. But it also comes with a great responsibility. We know that certain crossings are seen as not ethical in our scene. For example, crossing the different the different albino lines, bell albino, trampa albino, rainwater. Also, we have 3 to 4, maybe more really similar looking eye mutations. We have different lines of snow. And if we cross them all together, we know nothing anymore. So we want to try to avoid that. And in the podcasts in the past, breeder have already started what the newer generation like you guys are trying to do still today, to educate people how to breed responsible. This results in the people being more responsible and seemingly doing the right thing and the only logical thing, going to the breeder in question and demanding pure lines. Like, I don't want any other double heads crossed into this line. The problem is, if you get animals from me, then I can tell you what I crossed into, but I can't tell you what the person before me has crossed into, and the person before, and the person before. And you can't tell your client what I crossed in because you weren't there. You can only take responsibility for your part of the project. And that's totally natural. That's how nature works, guys. This is nothing bad. We are no magicians. We are not Harry Potter. We wish we would, but we can only do our part of the job. And we need to trust that the informations are accurate. And sometimes they are not accurate just because the other breeder doesn't know better. Maybe he never realized because he got the animals from someone who got the animals from someone. That's the old circle. So what I want to say is, the only way for a responsible breeder to create the pure line that the market demands is to willingly produce in masses what we try to avoid in the first place.
True.
Doing test crossing means crossing different forbidden strains. It's like, don't drink alcohol. I'm testing, so I'm drinking 2 liters of alcohol. I mean, on a genetic point, I want to say that the situation is ridiculous because it's the only way how we can do serious line breeding work. And we don't do this because we enjoy this. We do this because it's the only way. And we really want the best for the geckos and for the clients. So this is a heavy burden on all the breeders around the world who are, working their ass off and trying to produce the best and really pure bloodlines. They are aware that they contribute to the problem, but they have no other choice. It's not their fault. We didn't have an option before, but now we have. Now, if we all come together as a community and we develop gene tests, we don't need to produce in masses. We don't need to waste years of time, masses on pseudo females that we extra care for, that we just need for test breeding. We don't need to produce all those animals that are double heads in the worst case and that are sold to the pet trade or as feeder animals and wherever. So we can avoid this. We can breed in a more ethical way, in a more responsible way. And just imagine you can pick your favorite geckos right after birth. You can just keep the ones that you need for your project, and somebody else might need exactly what you don't need and is happy with that. And you can give accurate informations, and you can make sure that the animals who are double head, they don't breed, they stay pets. So in a few generations, we will have a totally different gene pool. Because what happens in nowadays, circle is that breeders sell off their byproducts to the pet trade. They are bought by novice breeders and they don't know better. Because have you ever gone to a pet shop and read a message like, those animals are double heads? No, of course not. This is never labeled. So you have to be aware of the problem that many of the animals entering the pet trade, or that you can find cheap from unsure sources, have a high percentage of being double head. This makes them great pets. and they deserve your love and your attention. They just don't make good breeders for responsible breeding projects. That's all that I say. If you want a pet gecko, you're fine to buy these animals. They're perfect for you. You don't need the $1,000 gecko. I don't say that at all. I just say that we as a community have to think about how we need to address the current problems in our hobby and in the industry, and it will make so much things so much easier, especially for the professionals who really breed on a higher scale. They don't have to waste so much time and money and effort on animals they never wanted in the first place. And yeah, that's exactly why we have to step in now.
I'll give you a really good example of something that just happened to me, and I need to test this out more, but I bought a Mandarin gecko from somebody about 2 years ago. And as soon as I bought that Mandarin, I was pairing him to some raptors in my collection, even though all Mandarins are possible het NDBE, and you don't really want to be crossing NDBE with the clips. But I was just going for color. I wanted to make colorful animals and produce orange animals. The breeder saw that I bred this animal to a raptor leopard gecko, and they chewed me out. They were like, you can't do that with the gecko. You shouldn't do that with the gecko. And I understand their point of view and all that kind of stuff. But the funny thing is, I bred that Mandarin, which is possible het NDBE, and the breeder was giving me a hard time for breeding it to an eclipse gecko. I bred it to an eclipse gecko and popped out eclipses. So that tells me either NDBE and eclipse are allelic, and I don't know if anyone's ever tested for that, or it tells me that this gecko, which he assured me is not het for eclipse, is actually het for eclipse and possibly het for NDBE at the same time, even though he was confident in his collection because he never saw it pop out, so to speak. What you're saying is it doesn't necessarily mean the gene is not hiding in there and just not popping up till later generations.
It can hide a very long time. And so basically from it, I hate to say this, and I know I'm not making many friends with this, but I'm not talking now as a gecko breeder. I'm talking as a former student of veterinary medicine who has taken courses in genetics. So what I know in all species is that the same genetic rules, the basic rules, they also apply to leopard geckos. Some traits can hide. They don't have to. In many examples, it will work fine, and we will see the results of the test crossings in 1 or 2 generations. But it doesn't have to be this way. There are confirmed cases. Also on gecko forums, you can read all of that after years, where somehow, somewhere, an eclipse or a tramper popped up, and people were devastated. So, and what you described the situation, it sums up the situation in a nutshell. You know, you're unhappy, you want to do the right thing, the breeder wants to do the right thing, the customers want to do the right thing, and you all lose something in the current situation. You can't seemingly make the right choice. And this is exactly why there is, in my opinion, nothing better than, getting into gene tests as soon as possible, because it can hide such a long time. You can't really 100% test breed a female. How? You can breed a male to 20 females. Can you breed a female to 20 males? How long will it take you? Forever. She will be too old before you really know. So what I do today in my stock is, and people who buy from me know that, I'm breeding responsible. I'm also working mostly with old stuff. I'm not crossing very much other stuff into my lines because I have a huge and diverse gene pool. And I'm mostly working on conservation projects, but I'll never give you 100% guarantee on hidden genes because I can't. I'm not an oracle. I don't know. I can give you my knowledge and my findings to the best of my abilities, but I cannot ignore that there will always be a risk. May it be 1%, 2%. That I will not know any hidden traits that have been entered my collection 15 generations ago, or 10 generations ago, or 5 generations ago. It is impossible. So what we have to see is we are trying to do the right thing, and we need to embrace science and the possibilities that are now given to us in order to fix this problem in a very elegant and animal-friendly way, because you can do this gene tests via sheds. No gecko has to lose blood or has to deliver live tissue or whatever. It's a very animal friendly, stress free alternative. And you will all know your results so much quicker. And you also shouldn't bash breeders for the findings, but be thankful that you know now what is hiding in your gene pool, and then you can manage it appropriately. You can breed certain traits out over time that you don't want. It's not the end of the world if you discover that your line is holding some traits that you don't want. It happens in the horse and breeding scenes of other animals all the time. So, do these breeders of racing horses throw away their $1 million horses because it has an unwanted genetic trait? Hell no. They will breed it out appropriately. There are breeding systems in place to do that ethically and in a very elegant and animal friendly way. So, for most problems, there is a very good solution. And I'm sure the whole, gecko economy, so to speak, will greatly benefit from that testings.
So I was actually having a laugh at the testings because with ball pythons, they could so easily get a shed because the ball python sheds, but leopard geckos eat them. Would there be a different way to like swab a gecko's mouth or something? Or
probably, yes.
You just have to catch the gecko in the act.
Yeah, you can storage the sheds. As soon as they are properly dried, you can storage them and you can use them even a year after you collected the sample. So you're not in a rush. You can wait until I see so many geckos shed in my collection regularly. I mean, it's no problem peeling a gecko from its shed and giving him a good dose of vitamins after. So for one time, yeah. I mean, that's not the end of the world for once doing it.
Normally, if they're close to that popping point, you could literally just, with some water or something, rub it and it will come off. But no, yeah, that genetic testing I think is really good, and we look forward to that. Again, if you missed it, Rebecca's going to potentially be working on some kind of GoFundMe for this genetic testing for the leopard gecko hobby. We'll
can't promise anything yet. Can't promise anything yet. It depends on,
now,
how things go, but I try my best.
Do you know Dr. Longgown Guo in America? He's the one that's working with Steve Sykes of Geckos, etc., to analyze blizzard, to analyze snow and these different things. So I don't know if you want, I saw that, I think you follow Strength in Leo's podcast. He just interviewed Dr. Longgown Guo. He's in Michigan now. So maybe connecting with Dr. G might help bridge that gap. I'm not sure if he's doing that, but I know he's working with Steve Sykes here because Steve Sykes of Geckos, etc., made a post about 2 years ago that Dr. G is analyzing the genome and the DNA of different morphs besides the lemon frost, which was originally what he was doing with Steve way back when.
Awesome. Yeah, I have his email. I'll definitely email him.
Cool. We're closing in on about an hour and a half. How you doing on time? Do you have a few more minutes? Do you want to just wrap it up here? Because I know it's late.
It's okay.
Cool. It's early here. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but I know it's a little later there. We didn't quite finish on the ghost topic. I need to run to the restroom real quick, but can you talk about ghost while I'm gone and your experience with ghost? I can tell you in America, at least from my perspective, I've been around, heavily for the last few years. We don't really work with ghosts. We don't really promote ghosts. It might be some of the underlying breeders that aren't so out there publicly. It's not very public. Can you talk about it a little bit and what we potentially can look forward to in working with ghosts? And I'll be right back.
Sure. So basically, Ghost is one of the oldest leopard gecko mutations, and it popped up quite early at either Rain High or LXU. We will never know for sure since the data were lost, and some people still today claim it was Ray High, and the other will claim it was LXU, but this doesn't matter anyway. LXU was the one who heavily, exported them also to Europe and brought them to Europe. So I got my first ghost, Maxno Ghost, 2006 from LXU directly. And he bred them for quite some time, crossed them into the Maxnos, and they were immediately catching my eye because in combination with the Max Snow, you can really see like the white and yellow. There are certain combinations with the ghost that seem to work pretty well and that seem to enhance the colors. And with the Snow Ghost, you definitely see this beautiful coloration of white, of purple and black. So that caught my eye. And there was always only the banded form of the Max Snow Ghosts and ghost stuff available at that time. So nobody had a huge interest in it. Some people bought it. It was nice, but everybody was waiting for other stuff like the tangerines and something. We talked about that before. There always seemed to be one or two lines who seem to catch all the attention and which are marketed pretty well, and others are a little bit in the background, but at the very end, it's all up to your personal taste and your personal feeling. And I personally always loved the lavender color, and I was breeding lavenders at that time. And I immediately realized when I saw this first animal, hey, this will go very well with what I'm breeding over here. So, which was also one of my strategies in Dragoon Gecko, by the way. I had few money and I had high hopes and high dreams. And I couldn't go and afford, a 1,000 or 2,000 euro gecko. It was just not possible. And you don't have to become a successful breeder, certainly not. So you just have to choose your projects wisely. You have to know, but we could talk about that in another podcast. I've built my system that worked pretty well for me, but I've built my whole collection from scratch. It did cost me some time and effort, but it was definitely worth it. And I certainly didn't run with a few thousand euros on my first show and bought this high-end cool animals. And honestly, the best and most valuable geckos that I got were so valuable that there wasn't even a price tag on them. They would have never become available in the first place. They were trades or investments, clever investments from other breeders. Like, okay, I know you. I know that you're doing your work. You're seemingly, making progress with that line. I want an offspring and I want first pick. So yeah, no problem. Of course you do that. So by the way, but this whole, background thing suddenly changed when the first Max No Ghost jungles appeared 2007 on the market. And I took over the whole project from Adling's Geckos, bred them for a long time. And then, of course, also crossed them out to other projects. And then I stumbled about the Albase snows. And I realized immediately I wanted some change, honestly, at that time. I was not really satisfied with the results of my Max No Ghosts. I love them and they look very stunning. And you've seen the lavender stripe, this really cool gecko that you showed before, this lavender purple gecko with a white stripe.
This one?
This is a Max No. That's a Max No. Max Nos look amazing. And I love Max Nos when they're young, but they tend to get yellow and dirty over time, and I didn't want that. And then I was researching about line breeding options because I knew I wanted to exchange the Max Snow for another snow gene. And then of course I compared the different lines, and what I saw was easily Albase were the whitest of them all, the clearest. And so I got
that was the Albie.
Yeah, Albie. Yeah. And
I don't know if we touched on this earlier. Albie is just dominant. It's not incomplete dominant, right? There's not like a super form, or we don't know.
Exactly. That is the reason why I wanted to go away from the Max Snow. I still love Max Snow Ghosts. They are beautiful, and I haven't bred them for some years, but I will breed them again next year and throw in some extra things because it's like cooking, you try out a new recipe and you add some things here and there, and then it gets a totally different look. But the main reason for my focus was always the ghost. And what really concerned me at that point was that with Max Snow Ghost and Max Snow Ghost, you always got the Super Snows, and Super Snow blocks everything, even the ghost. To my personal knowledge, and I've worked with Ghost, I think, the longest of all breeders, but hey, if you have other findings, please let me know. I know that I don't know everything, and I would really love to know. But to my personal findings, there is no way that you can tell a Ghost Super Snow from a normal Super Snow. I would have loved that. I tried for that very hard, but it's not possible. And I wanted to know, that was always concerning point for me. I wanted to know the genetics in the animals. I don't want to say, oh, it could be a ghost or it couldn't be, and then I have to sell them as normal super snows, and this is not a gain for me. So I had all these byproducts that I didn't had any, use for, because my main focus was not the super snow. It was the ghost snows. So
Is
I
ghost
switched over.
dominant or
Yes,
lion?
Ghost is dominant. If you cross ghost to something else, you get 50% ghost. At least that's what's said.
Now
Trevor says that, and everybody else says that, and they behave in my breeding stock certainly that way. So without a gene test, I don't, set my signature under any contract. But from what I've seen here, it aligns with what we find in the initial book of leopard geckos from Ron Tramper and all the other information out there. I'm positive that they could be dominant. Yes.
Okay.
There is
Now,
no line
actually,
breeding component that I see whatsoever.
I love Ron Tremper, but I never read any of his books. He talked about ghost in his book.
Yes, you should. You should get your hands on this first copy and also the second copy. This is the Bible. This is the Holy Bible. You get so many valuable informations there. Also from the breeding side, breeding on a bigger scale. He really opened my eyes and gave me so many tips. He was the first one to really show people how to breed them on a bigger scale. So that's amazing.
But we could promote his book. It says it in his book. But what does the ghost gene actually do? Does it lighten the blacks to purple? Does it lighten the yellows to more of a pale yellow? Or what does it do?
It's basically similar to white and yellow. It is a color changer and color enhancer gene. So whatever you cross into a ghost, you never know. You never know what you get out. You can get out crazy results. You can cross them into almost everything and you will never know. So in my opinion, ghost is one of the most underrated traits in the whole reptile industry, certainly in the leopard gecko industry, and we will see a lot more with the ghosts coming. And I know that there are more and more requests also from India on my channel or on my email, and also from some Asian countries. They are now getting more and more interested in the ghost stuff. So there's definitely some rethinking and evaluating the quality that they see. And the cool thing is, as you see in ghost, you can heavily line breed the ghost to have a certain look. So my ghost look totally different from another breeder's ghost, and you will never get this look from another line. So that's the cool thing. If you do your thing and you're consistent with it, you can create a line of ghosts that is so unique that it is linked to you directly.
In your opinion, ghost is completely different than any of the snows. There's no chance that you
ghost
see that ghost and snow
ghost is ghost and snow is snow. You have what one of the most interesting things that I discovered about the ghost. By the way, there is an article about the ghost on Gecko Time that I wrote many years ago. You can look into that if you're interested, for all the viewers out there who want to know more. The ghost has the most potential for green that I've ever seen, and they are also the true chameleons of the leopard geckos. They can change colors depending on their mood. They can be jet black almost and then really light the next day. I've never seen anything like that in any other gecko. This is amazing.
Cool. They must have, that sounds really amazing. I know you said that Sophie's geckos, or geckos with Sophie. She was the first person that I really saw to promote ghost, because like I said, in America, it's not really talked about. I think in Europe, it's a little bit more talked about, but in America, it's like really not at all. But she was the first person I saw. I saw her Black Knight ghost, her Lavender ghost, all that stuff. And then I was talking with you, and you said that she got a lot of her stuff from you originally, right?
Yeah, those are my great-great-grandchildren.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, and you can see she's doing her own thing and has her own twist on things. So you're totally free as a breeder to, give them your own unique look. And as a buyer, you're totally free to choose or combine different styles. It's like, this is why it's called living art. Every artist has its own signature, and the signature on my animals is significant, and on her animals it is significant, her signature. And that's what makes me so happy that other, generations are working with my bloodlines and putting their own signature on things and doing their own thing with them, and find them useful.
So in summary of Ghost, it's an amazing gene that works a little bit mysteriously, similar to white and yellow. It creates an enhanced look for the gecko, or maybe a different look. It's kind of random a little bit, but definitely worth investing in. It highlights a lot of green pigments more than any other mutations out there. It would be good for clown then, don't you think? Or like clown-ish lines that are like really green dominant,
Exactly.
or green dominant.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I think one of the things that makes not that popularity is necessarily what you want to shoot for in a hobby, but everybody wants to see their hobby successful. And what makes a hobby successful is desirability. I think that Leopard Geckos has so many new combinations and artistic styles that is still left for us to do, but people haven't been talking about it as much. And so Leopard Geckos, especially in America, that's why they're being sold for $2 to $5 wholesale, is because the promotion of them has been negated. It's been taken away to the point where now they're just a disposable pet. They're like, you know what I mean? Like, they're looked at more on the cheaper end of a beginner style pet, rather than this elaborate designer animal that you can still create new combinations that hasn't yet been done, and artistic styles that hasn't yet been done. And that's one of my goals in having my YouTube channel, is showing people that Leopard Geckos is not dead. Like, there's so many things that hasn't been done with Leopard Geckos that can still be done, and Ghost is now on my hit list to work with in the future. But
definitely. What you have to make sure is that you get a true genetic ghost, because as always, I mean, at the high peak and still today, I see so many white and yellows that have the clear markers of white and yellow, and then I see many white and yellows that have almost no markers as a white and yellow. So if you're buying an animal without the visible markers, you have to really trust the person. And with a morph that I am not familiar with, I'm not willing to take that risk. That's my personal thing. So I'm going to a good source from someone who's really experienced, who has, worked with this line for some generations, and then I tell him, this is my budget, please pick me a visual ghost, and then you can make a start, and then you will see success. But if you pick up any animal, I see so many geckos mislabeled as ghost because people don't understand what even makes a ghost. And I'm wondering, this was in the past, this has led to, the fact that the ghost has been overseen many times. But when I see the white and yellow stuff, not even 50% of the white and yellow look like white and yellow, but still everybody's crazy about white and yellow, and nobody's afraid to buy white and yellows, no matter if they look like that or not, because they have the confidence and the trust that they will see, what markers makes a white and yellow. And I can tell you exactly what markers make a ghost, and a true ghost is never yellow. At least in a non-albino form, a true ghost is always green. So, and it has to come from a genetic true ghost line. And then you can see wonderful results and wonderful successes. There have been so many breeders in the past that have worked with the ghost and have created beautiful stuff. Especially in Europe. They're not around anymore mostly, but the work has been there, and they offer a huge potential for anyone looking for fresh blood, and maybe the one or other surprising effect on his bloodlines. That's what the true mystery of the ghost makes. They have the power to unlock new looks and certain traits that you don't get anywhere else. So I can't imagine the future. I'm really, really looking forward to see what they can do. And in combination with the albase, they make really stunning animals for sure.
Wow. Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on your page for that. While we were just on white and yellow a second ago, it just came to mind. What is your opinion on white and yellow syndrome? Did the syndrome come from a defective line versus a clean line? Like, I haven't heard any explanation as far as if there's like a clean line and a dirty line, or if the clean line can produce dirty animals with syndrome. Because I got a bunch of white and yellows, but none have syndrome. But there's other breeders that say that they do experience syndrome in certain instances. So do you have any knowledge to drop on us about that?
Unfortunately, we will never know. We're coming back to those gene tests again and again and again, and I don't want to repeat myself over here, but we don't even know if white and yellow and Enigma, they look so similar. So probably they're on the same complex somewhere. And there is a theory. It's just a theory, and it's not my theory. I just heard it, that maybe, with the pigmentation around the ears in the inner organs of the hearing canal, that this has something to do with the syndromes being expressed. So we don't know for sure. We know that there are certain mutations, lemon frosts, white and yellow Enigma, that are known for certain problematic occurrences.
Yeah.
I personally do not work with any of them because of that, because this is just a personal thing for me. I don't blame anybody for breeding them. I personally just don't have the space and the capacities to work with them additionally, because my focus is the old and almost, extinct bloodlines that I'm preserving for the future, hopefully. So I don't want those to get, in contact, at least in my stock, with genes that could weaken them or, make it even harder for me to make them survive. And I don't want to lose a part of my collection to genetic, issues. That is one of the reasons why I don't do it. But so I can't tell you personal experience. I just can tell you that I got one of the very early Enigmas years ago for a lot of money. And it died. It didn't even make it into adulthood because it had such a severe syndrome and was so inbred, and it was horrible to watch. And that maybe scared me away from all this topic. So we definitely need some research here. And I have my doubts that it will be so easy that there will be a healthy line, the good line, and then there's the bad line. I think this is just a syndrome that randomly occurs over and over again, because such things tend to be more polygenetic than other things and not so easy to grasp. And I'm not sure if we will ever be able to breed it out of the colonies. At least there will be close to zero chances if we don't have genetic testing and background knowledge available. So what is causing the problems? We need to go to the root of the problem, and then we can approach it from a totally different standpoint, and then we can actually try to create those lines where we eliminate the problem. So that would be exciting and cool to see. But without a proper foundation and just a try and error method, it's just not ethical, and it doesn't fit the animals at that point.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good topic to talk about. And like you said, when you're trying to test something out like that, it takes up a ton of space, a ton of time, a ton of money, a ton of investment for a chance that you don't even know if it's going to work out. So that's just something for people to keep in mind if they're trying to like make something better or create something clean. But like you said, going back to the white and yellow thing, and also if you haven't watched what we talked about earlier, we talked a little bit about how complex genetics can be and how certain genes can kind of like lie sleeper or lie dormant for a long time and like express themselves later on, right? So like, is that happening with the white and yellow as far as it's expressing in some instances more than other lines or other instances? We won't know, but we were saying how genetic testing can be a big part of helping figure that all out. But yeah, I was just purely curious if you had any experience with that, because I know I've heard a lot of stuff about white and yellow syndrome. I've never seen it. I have had a couple Enigmas that, like you said, very sad, very disheartening to see it spin around in circles, not eat, not thrive, and then die one day, right? And it's
and they're so beautiful.
And they're very beautiful.
It breaks my heart. They are so stunning. I love them. But
I know
no use if they don't survive.
Yeah, it's no use if they don't survive. It's going to be heartbreaking to you. There's a lot of breeders in the hobby that take the perspective that you shouldn't give people hope of a cure necessarily, even though there are certain breeders that are like trying to outcross it. Or most recently, I heard about this breeder, and you're a vet. Maybe you know what they were talking about. I forget. It was some kind of vitamin or something that they were giving to their Enigmas, and they were claiming that it was good. We might interview them next year and talk about it with them. But anyways, there's no guarantee, right? So like if you were to take on an Enigma or Lemon Frost or White and Yellow Syndrome project, it might and probably will just cost you a lot of heartache. So you might just want to think twice about it before tackling that. But yeah, so we talked about a lot of things. Yeah,
I just want to put in there that for the records, I'm not a finished official vet. I studied veterinary medicine, but I didn't officially finish the study. I went into another branch, but of course, I learned a lot in my studies, and I also didn't learn genetics, but I also had the privilege of working in this year's with animal behavioral studies and at an institute that was specialized and focused on animal behavior. So all of that made me understand my gecko so much better from a behavioral standpoint and also from the medical standpoint. So of course I'm not a certified vet and I don't give recommendations here. And I find it very important that, as always, to stress the fact that I'm not here to tell you what to do. That is not my purpose here. And I think it's nobody's purpose to forbid or tell others what to do. Everybody has his own free will and he needs to get and gather all the information, and then he has to make his own decision and his own choice. He just needs to live with the consequences. So I think that is really, really important, and another big step towards more drama-free zones in the community. Let's be, just like the French say, laissez-faire, and let us be how we want to be and accept other standpoints and other opinions. And there is, like another breeder puts it so perfectly in words, for most things there's more than one right way to do things. But of course, we always, as a community, have to put animal welfare as our top priority, always, if we want to survive the current difficult times where more and more you have to be aware, if you're keeping reptiles, in fact, if you're keeping any animal, that you're under watch by people who want to take your rights away from you and who are waiting with the right arguments and, for the right time. That's how it is. You cannot change this, and you will not change this, but you can change how you approach this. If you're doing your work respectfully and with the welfare of the animals always in mind, and you back yourself up and you do whatever you do out of the protection of the animals and their welfare in mind, there is nothing that you have to fear, and you set a positive outer impression for the whole community, and then we can all work together like clockwork and be safe and can enjoy this hobby for many, many more generations to come, and teach our children and grandchildren how to care for animals, how to breed them. And that would be something that I would love to see.
That's true. That's one thing I do notice about the reptile hobby, at least here in America. The youth is really diving into it more in astronomical numbers now than I think they ever had. Like, people were always more like cats and dogs people, but now the exotic community of birds, reptiles, fish, even arachnids and insects and stuff is really becoming popular. So I enjoy that so much at shows, being able to have kids hold geckos, and they're just astounded by it. Even adults. This last show that we did, there was this gigantic male that was like walking by our table. He was probably like 6'3" and like 250 pounds of just like pure muscle. And he was about to leave. I saw him like about to walk past us. And I said, hey, do you want to hold our biggest gecko? You could hold our biggest gecko for the biggest dude, right? Just something friendly like that. A big gecko for a big dude. I put a super giant gecko in his hands. He stayed for like 45 minutes at our table, and he turned into a big softie. And little kids were coming up to the table, and they were like, ew, like, I don't know if I should hold a gecko. And he's like, hey, look, if I could do it, you could do it. And right there and then he became like a spokesperson for breaking that whatever mental barrier that we have of like reptiles being disgusting or yucky. He just like was able just to break it down right there. And I think we had a really good moment with him there, and he was encouraging others. But that was really fun to see. And I love shows for that reason, you know.
Oh, I love to hear stories like this, and this is a perfect example how our hobby can contribute making people's life so much better. So yeah, always
As
love
a
to hear those
as a
things.
vet, real quick, can you touch? Oh, sorry, not a vet. I apologize, but you, as someone who has more medical knowledge than the average person, can you touch on Cryptosporidium real quick? What is your experience with that in Europe? I know that over here in America, it was like really prevalent, but now just kind of lingers around. Can it lie dormant in a perfectly healthy looking animal, or will the animal always be scrawny looking so we could kind of be aware of it? Can you talk a little bit about crypto?
Honestly, we need another podcast for that topic. And for that topic, I wouldn't want to do this topic alone. I would actually love to be backed up by my former breeding colleague, Martina, who is a certified vet, and she's specialized for leopard geckos and has worked at the clinic for veterinary medicine at the university in Vienna for many years. So she's definitely the expert to turn to. But what I can say from our findings, yes, when I was into geckos in the early years in study, we realized that there were many animals coming. There was a big flood of populations that were, infected with it, and now it's then more and more people started to test, and the message got out, and the hygiene was better. And I was one of the first ones actually to bring disinfection solution to the ham shows as a vendor. Nobody had that, and I was like, no, you're not touching my gecko unless you're disinfect your hands first and then let it dry, and then I set the gecko in your hands. And yeah, I started cleaning my whole facility, and I do it till today. I use, gloves, latex gloves, just the regular ones. And I put a high effort and high amount of hygiene into my facility, but that's maybe because I'm, due to this experience in the study and my, upbringing there in the study, maybe I was trained different. So for me, it's many things are just automatically coming. And what I can say is that cryptosporidiosis is still, not to be taken lightly, because it can linger around a long time in certain animals. We don't know exactly why, but it became obvious years ago, and that's old knowledge, that some animals seem to get along with crypto better than others. To put it carefully, they do not express symptoms, but they will spread the disease to everybody around them, and then the whole collection basically suffers and dies. So that, of course, it's not something that you want to do, but the only thing that preserves you is do a quarantine, do your hygiene, take that very, very serious, especially if you have high-end geckos. Don't cut corners on disinfection solution and gloves and whatever. And, be with your mind, be inside your mind when you work. Don't, touch things and then don't disinfect. You take your gloves, you make a box, you take the gloves away, and you take new gloves, and you go in a new box, and so on and so forth. And you also don't exchange your, water bowls and whatever between your boxes. So you really have to think about what hygiene really means and how you can prevent this from happening. And also, of course, test your animals regularly. I test my animals regularly, just to be on the safe side. And it's a good feeling. And of course, it's a huge cost factor, but this is for me a small price to pay in comparison to the alternative. So definitely is something that I can recommend.
What chemical did you recommend again?
What?
what chemical did you recommend again? Did you
Oh,
say
there
that you?
No, there are different chemicals available, and you have to also inform yourself in your country what's allowed and what's not. Some things
Oh,
you can
gotcha.
only got via veterinarian, but you have to take for the cleaning a solution. Maybe talk with your vet that is killing the oocyten, oocytes in English. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know the word.
Otis.
The
Otis.
eggs,
Yeah.
yeah, the
That-
oocytes of the Cryptosporidium. You really need to tackle that because a normal solution won't do.
yeah,
And you
those are.
have to be careful in handling because those solutions, maybe you need a respiratory mask or something to work with that. So please be careful and not, you know, do your homework before that.
Yeah, yeah. I did a little bit of research on crypto before I made this parasite video talking about pinworms, coccidia, crypto, and out of all of them, it seems like crypto is the most resilient against even bleach and chemicals. But the oocysts are even more resilient than the crypto parasite. Parasite themselves. And it was saying like even extreme temperatures and extreme chemical solutions and stuff, the oocysts can still be around for 6 to 8 months. So it's like it's a serious thing. Now, I don't know if you can recommend this based on your experience with it, but if a gecko tests positive for crypto, would you just euthanize the gecko and like throw away everything that belonged to that gecko just for safety, or do you think like ultraviolet treatment and chemical solution and just letting it sit around for a while can be recycled back into general gecko population, the decorations and the tank or
Never.
whatever?
The decoration, never.
Just get rid of it.
For me, that I'm sorry, I don't care about the 10 or 50 or $100 on €1,000 gecko. No, no,
Yeah,
no, no, never ever. So if an animal tests positive, of course the decision whether you euthanize it or not is your personal decision, and I can't take that away from you.
right.
I have made the experience that leopard geckos as cold-blooded animals do not respond to euthanization so well than warm-blooded animals. For me, it I had some good experiences with it during my study and had some absolutely horrifying things that I had to watch, and I don't want to go into detail here.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
all depends on the vet. It all depends on the animal, and
Well,
in the end, you just have to take this burden and make the decision on your own. But nevertheless, an animal that is tested positive needs to be isolated immediately from the
yeah,
whole collection in another room, even. And you need a complete set of everything. And when you go into the room, you treat your healthy animals first. And after that, you enter the other room and you have everything there, the own food, feeder insects, water, whatever, you name it. You don't go back in the other room, period. And you wash your clothes and you take clothes that you can wash on a really high temperature. You just make sure that you do everything in your power to be on the safe side. So, as I said, I don't want to go into more details here because I'm not a certified vet and I don't feel comfortable enough, talking about this with an audience, because I don't feel that I have the necessary expertise on that field. I would like to leave this talk for Martina in the future, but we could come back anytime. It's no problem.
yeah.
So
I'll have to get with you and Martina. Maybe we could have one of the three of us or something like that, and we can ask all those questions. That would be great. So let me take a look. We covered a lot of stuff here. We'll kind of start wrapping it up a little, if that's good with you and works for you.
sure.
Let me take a look at some of the topics that maybe we didn't touch on, because we did touch on a lot. We never touched on why you're back. Do you want to tell us what happened, or why you're so passionately coming back, and what your goal is right now? I think you've spoken a little bit about the conservation, which I think is excellent, but if there's any other goals, that would be great to hear about.
Yeah. So I was breeding leopard geckos for some time, and then I mean, let's start at another point. I got into leopard geckos at the high peak, at an absolute high. And like every market and the ball python, if you're familiar with the ball python people,
Yeah, yeah.
they will all tell you that the market comes and goes in waves.
Mhm.
It's the same with the leopard gecko market. So I came in at an all-time high, and it stayed in this plateau for some years, and it went well, and I built up my breeding stock, and I was that's why I can relate to the younger people so well. I was just like them. I wanted what everybody wanted when he gets into geckos. I wanted to breed this high-end animals. I wanted to get, you know, something out there. That was my work. Not necessarily, it was not about fame for me and breeding the first combo of everything. I mean, due to the fact that I worked with not so often used bloodlines, I had the huge honor and privilege doing many first time combos with the ghosts and the albas and also some electric stuff. But this was never the goal. The goal was always to breed on the highest quality level possible so that it could acquire even higher animals and work my way up there. And then the situation in the market changed. We changed a lot. We had a really deep low for some years, 2 or 3 or 4 years. And in that time, many things happened around the scene. The whole scene completely changed. We lost gecko forums, and suddenly it wasn't, as we talked about, it wasn't so easy to get new information. I was lucky enough that I belonged to the old generation who had access to all those valuable inputs, and I got my ground education, so to speak. But it was so difficult for me nowadays to get the newer information because people were claiming things and there was no way to prove it. And that made
Mm.
things so complicated and difficult. And as you also said, personal things also play into role. The one breeder bashed the other, and one says Y and the other says X, and you don't know what to believe, and you're confused and you have to find out for yourself. So this was all adding to the situation, just that you understand the general situation that we were in. So we were in a kind of breakthrough to another era, I would say, if that describes it. English is not my
Yeah,
native
no, okay.
tongue, so I'm sorry. I'm lacking the words here to describe, but I had the feeling that we were in transition from one era to another, like that. And of course, as in every change of an era, many people that I admire deeply and that, inspired me a lot from the really old gecko brigade, they got out of business. Everyone. And
Mm, yeah.
suddenly there was no one left at the top anymore for a short period of time. And if all your idols are gone and you're standing there without somebody to look upon, and of course some few others were there, but it's like when you're a fan of the 80s music, then the 90s were great, but it was not the 80s, and you can't compare, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you experience live events with, I don't know, Queen and whatever, then you will see things different from somebody that is a millennium and, just is happy to go to any other band. So it's all based on your personal feeling experience. It was so much more intimate that days. It was so much more. Um, there were so much more high-end animals around when we were at the highest peak, and suddenly, when so many people got out of the hobby, the animals disappeared with them. So we had a kind of period where, and this is excellent, because that was the point that I wanted to talk with you about in the beginning. One or two
Mhm.
single genes became so dominant that they took all the space, and many other valuable bloodlines were lost forever. And those were bloodlines that I always wanted to get in, and that I never had as a young girl the possibility, the chance to get my hands onto, and now they were gone. And this all frustrated me so much and made me so sad. And selling leopard geckos was becoming harder and harder. The most beautiful animals weren't worth anything anymore. That was the feeling of everybody. So
Yeah.
suddenly the reptile shows were not that exciting and fun anymore, because everybody was worried about his animals and everybody was looking at the price tag. And I was working very hard also on social media. I had my Facebook page, and I had, so many things going on there that I really felt the need for break. Not a break of breeding, but a break of social media and a break of how I wouldn't call it a business because I'm a private breeder, but how I do my business, so to speak. So I really felt the need to step back a little bit, take my time, and carefully think about how to approach the situation. And the funny thing is, I'm coming back in exactly the same situation that I left, but with a totally different mindset, because I found my inner peace and I found my strategy. Because the old strategy, having many geckos and taking care of many geckos, it was so much fun. I loved it. I loved developing those bloodlines, and it took a lot of animals and a lot of, time and effort. It was wonderful. But suddenly I was tired of, having so many animals to worry about whether they would go into caring hands. And that was for me the most important thing. And so I changed my strategy. I really slimmed down my whole collection, and I concentrated on the few projects, core projects that were, my kennel was known for. And in addition, I took in or continued some rare and valuable bloodlines that have otherwise would have gone to extinction. For example, the neon bells. Yeah, that they were so wonderful, and I enjoy working with them every day. And some other stuff.
So if people want to see some really on the more rare side and like historic landmark morphs, they could go to your page at Dragoon Geckos, and you'll be dropping some knowledge. Now that you're back, you'll kind of be and just to encourage you, I think there's a big thirst in the hobby right now for knowledge of that history, because it's not really being talked about. Yes, we have the books, like Ron Tremper's book is amazing, but it's kind of like people want to talk fresh, like if Ron Tremper was here today, I'd love to interview him and talk fresh with what he's doing, but he's kind of just like behind the scenes with, the person he sold the business to. People want to talk to a fresh face. Like, you're a fresh face that is actually doing it, and you've done it. And so I would imagine you're going to get a lot of messages from people like, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about Ghost. And you said that some of this information can actually be located currently on geckotime.com, is it? And
yes.
Was there another page as well, you said?
So the problem is that as much as I love to give advice, I get flooded with emails, even at the time where I was not, on social media, that it's just impossible to answer everybody's questions. And also, I don't want to take the risk, of please be kind, don't send me animals like, is this a ghost? Because I won't answer it. Due to politics and political reasons, I don't want to mess with other people's stuff. And I also honestly can't tell you. I can give you a guarantee on the animals in my stock, but I want to stay careful, and I don't want to give the impression that, I would be so daring to question other breeders' work with the ghosts, and other traits. So in general, there are two ways to get the knowledge. The one is what we do currently here, a live stream, and you can send me your questions. And of course, if you follow me on Instagram, we will do live streams and collaborations on a regular basis. That's what I'm really passionate about, and there answer selected questions there. Of course, only as few as I can manage, but I'll try my best. And in case for everybody who's really interested in a personal coaching, in a really deep insight and evaluation, honest of his animals and the potential and so on and so forth, I offer paid genetical coaching. And you can contact me via DM on Instagram on a paid basis, because I really have to dig deeper than and it will cost me time that I need to compensate, of course, but I'll do that gladly. And for everybody who really wants to learn and wants to get the knowledge on these bloodlines and transfer it directly to your animals in question and to your personal situation in question, with no doubts and no bullshit and whatever, then we can do this in a one-to-one coaching. So anytime.
Yeah, and coaching is great. I mean, that's used in every profession and hobby, right? Music, art. So people have this whole thing about like spending money in the reptile world. Like they try not to relate the two, but if you want quality information and if you want quality service, sometimes those things are worth paying for. And that's where like I don't know if you know about Patreon, but Patreon is big nowadays with reptile people to, just like you said, offer coaching services or different tiers of exclusive content. But anyway, if you guys do want coaching services, then you can DM Dragoon Gecko. I think that's a great offer because people would really, really like that. Before I wrap up with a couple fun questions, there were like 2 questions that I missed in the chat since you were just talking about answering questions from people live. Norman was asking, do you have any ghosts that are no hets, or would you call them no hets? I know you went over the whole thing, like you can never give 100% kind of thing.
I will never sell you any ghost that is pure and known for no hets, because I don't work this way.
Yeah, it's so funny because like in America, the whole no het thing will actually gather a higher price tag. But in my mind, I'm just thinking to myself, like, can you really guarantee, even if you've done some test breeding?
Well, the question is, for example, if I want to breed a purple white gecko with black eyes, then it's logical to add the eclipse gene. And my most beautiful striped animals come from my eclipse line. So I don't see any sense in test breeding and breeding the eclipse or tramper out of that, because or starting from scratch, because those animals are beauty in their own right, and they're exactly how I imagined them to be. And then I don't care so much if they are tramper possible or not, because I will never breed them to trampers, except for the jungle tramper line that I have. But I don't plan to breed them into my belts anytime soon because of that reasons. I don't want this test crossing and mass producing of double head animals. I will wait for gene testing, and then I will get my animals tested. Definitely, you can bet that I will be one of the first to let these animals test, just for me to know. And then I will, have the luxury of splitting up the different groups, and then I will maybe do a ghost bell line. This is the reason why I don't have a ghost bell line. I have beautiful neon bells, and I would love to cross them with ghosts, but I'm not feeling confident. I don't trust, that there isn't a hidden gene somewhere. I haven't produced a tramper of certain lines in ages, but I can't give a guarantee, and I don't want to be the bad guy. And so I don't do it. I have my tramper ghosts and I have my eclipse ghosts, and I highly recommend, if you want to work with my high-end trampers, with my high-end ghost stuff, that you're totally safe crossing them into trampers. And in case you want to breed them into rainwater or into bell, you can certainly do so, but please do test crossing before, and be aware that I don't give any guarantee, because I really can't say. I'm doing my best, and I can say that I have certain lines that I can pick for you, that I'm pretty sure and confident that the percentage is low. But just because there hasn't been a tramper in the last 3 generations, it doesn't mean that, I can give you 100% guarantee, and I wouldn't feel ethical selling this gecko and marketing this gecko to you as a no known head, because that's all what it says. No known head. I don't know if there are heads. You got it?
But you didn't test at the same time too. So
like, that's the same. That's the same when I sell you a car and I say no known accidents.
That's true.
I don't know if my brother crashed the car when I was away. I don't know. No known accidents as far as
no known accidents.
So,
but you also didn't look too deeply or try. So I get it. It's for me, I think it's more of a marketing ploy. The no known heads thing will gather a higher price tag, because
it's a good thing that people are striving for, excluding unwanted genes from their population in order to breed responsibly. I'm totally for trying your best, and I don't blame anyone for doing test crossings. Again, it is until now the only option that we have, and I rather see somebody test crossing than doing nothing and doing unethical things, claiming that, oh, we don't have any other option, and I rather don't test breed than test breed. So it's totally okay for me, but I just decided that I really want to push this now, that there's a better way, a more elegant way to do this also for the animals in question. And I personally, and this again proves that for me it's not about being the world's first breeder here, whatever. I'm doing this for the love of the animals because I like what I do. And when I have, like in the last video, a world's first, then I'm happy, but this is not the purpose behind Dragoon Gecko. And of course, I could have hatched ghost belts and snow and neons a long time ago. But I decided against that until I can be sure that the animals that I get into my program are indeed what they should be.
Okay. Yeah, and that's good. I see the world's first you're talking about. So that is the Albi Montanus Ghost
Raptor
Shrimper. So are you pretty passionate about the wild types as well, and like incorporating that to each other,
yes.
with mutations? Because I'm really passionate about that as well. So I'm sure you know about Afghanicus being really dark-bodied animal. So I got my own Afghanicus Black Knight project starting right now because I think they'll complement each other well. Fasciolatus is really light and like purple in coloration. So I got my own like lavender fasciolatus stuff going on. We even hatched a fasciolatus this year that is like super, super pink. So I'm seeing if that's going to carry on into adulthood and if that's replicatable. But that's how like people can have fun with it, because genetics are going to be kind of random at times. You're going to hatch some animals that are completely different than the parents or a very much higher expression, and you can start working a project in that direction for fun, So I really like what you did with kind of the way that you're marketing, how specific you are with looking with details of certain projects and kind of fine tuning it, The other question that we had was, I know it's not ethical to cross albino lines, but there's a little confusion in the community because some people are spreading word that crossing the albino lines in general will create a health risk for the animal. For example, having double het animals or double visual animals is an actual risk for the animal. Do you have any input on that from your knowledge, experience, or medical history or anything like that?
There is no scientific paper or data that I am aware of at this point that goes into that direction, that it could be troublesome for the animal's health. So I assume it is not a health problem. It's more an ethical problem, because we also have, and something that shouldn't be taken lightly, I mean, it is not seen as ethical for a good reason. You need to be transparent and clear what you sell to other people, and you can't just mishmash and mix everything and just imagine you're getting some white geckos and you don't know even what they are. Maxno, Geem, Albay, Trampa, Bell, Rainwaters. So what to do now? You can, and especially without genetic testing, you can never go back. That's the other problem. Since we do not have the possibility right now to do a genetic testing and isolate and see certain traits and differentiate them from others on a paper, we don't see what genes those geckos carry. And once they are all mixed and mashed up in the whole population, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
People need to trust me. When I say this is a Maxno, they need to trust me that this is a Maxno. And this is why I would never, probably even breed my Maxno colony even close and in the same incubator, incubate them as the line bred stuff, just to be on the safe side.
That just shows you how much passion you put into keeping these things segregated, because most people wouldn't think that, but that's actually a really good idea, because when you're working with hundreds of eggs a year, you can mix stuff up. It can definitely happen. Perfection is tougher to manage. So that's great that you do something like that. I think that was it for the actual last questions. We could do a couple wrap up fun questions in conclusion. And next time I would love to, just in conclusion, what's your neon bells? Can you touch on what that is real quick? I heard you mention it and I was going to ask, but what is that?
Neon bells were at their time the coolest bells around. So we had those normal bells, a little tangerine with lots of spotting, and the neon bells were originated by Dr. Christina Voss, aka known Lizard Girl, in the US. And she hatched the first ones and established a bloodline with them. And they were so popular in US at that time. Everybody wanted them. And the fun fact about the neons is they are the only morph until now, for the record, in the whole gecko history, who made their name, who got accepted as clearly as a separate inheritable bloodline, because they were so significant different from any bell that you've ever seen before. You can compare them to the blood bells in some way, but the tangerine is lighter. So they were spotless. They were just neon orange, as the name implied. The name was spot on. The animals were spot on, and everybody loved them. Everybody wanted to have them, and Christina didn't sell any of them. And everybody was talking about, oh, this is a morph. This is so cool. This is the next thing. And over the next years, she bred them, and she proved that these claims were true. So it was an established bloodline even before she sold one of them. It was so crazy. And then before she sold them, she decided, and I'm still very thankful for that, to entrust me with the project, because she switched over to Cresties. And so I had the unique chance to purchase all of them, and I got her complete breeding stock, and I haven't released any of them. I just kept them for myself. So much for everybody, you know, who was thinking until now, oh, she's in it for the money. No, I have them for many, many years, and I didn't sell any of them. It was not about the money. I just wanted to work with them for a little time longer, understand their pattern, their behavior. I want to outcross them also a little bit more, and I want to enlarge in the gene pool, but also establishing and not ruining the original look. So as you see, genetics are very complex, and if we're working with really high-end, high-quality lines, I want to make sure that I really do my best before putting them on sale. So I don't know when the first ones will be available, maybe in a year, maybe in two, but definitely they are so beautiful, and they are the first morph before ever released to public that made it in the Leopard Gecko Pro app of Ron Tramper. It was totally crazy. So
definitely worth getting the app in the books, is what you're saying, for Ron Tramper. Do you, just thinking real quick, and you could say whatever you want about this, do you have any input over Ron Tremper's recent claim that Supergiant is recessive instead of incomplete dominant? Any thoughts on that? I know we need genetic testing to prove that one way or the other, but I heard that there was some controversy about it because originally it was released as an incomplete dominant. The vast majority of the hobby today believes it's more polygenetic, more line bred. Big geckos make big geckos. And then in his book, which really threw everybody for a loop, was he mentioned that it was recessive in his most recent book.
Yeah, that's another example, a fine example on how genetics do not always work as simple as we would like them to work. So based on my personal findings, I have imported supergiants and giants also from Ron and from other breeders in the past. And I bred them with not so great results. I don't know. I think maybe we're using different foods for feeding the mealworms. I think it has definitely something to do with nutrition a lot. That the giants in Europe, or many giants in Europe, they, at least in my facility, the animals that I bought, they were giants and they didn't produce giants. They produced bigger geckos, yes, but nothing compared to what other US breeders produced. And also the whole anatomy was totally different. You could see that the whole gecko was the
shape
fascian?
Was a little different.
No, what's I'm lacking the words right now. Fascian. The thing that holds the skin and the muscles together.
Oh, tissue.
Tissue.
Or
Thank
yeah,
you.
maybe tissue. I don't know.
Well, let's say that the skin structure in general is different from the original people who geckos who were imported and the parental
Wow.
generation to the generation that I bred over there. So I think based on the fact what I saw, I definitely see a genetic inheritance and link to size. That's what I know for sure. And I know that they didn't behave like I was expected, like with the giant and the super giant. So there would be a possibility that those animals are polymorphic, but then we would see more variety. Have we really measured the length and the size? We would need more data about that, because with the 2 or 3 animals that I had, I can claim nothing.
Yeah.
I can just give you a rough feeling that I had, but in order to test that out, we would really need to have a measurement and weight control system of a few hundred geckos in order to get those data that would back the line breed versus the other theory up. What speaks for Ron is that, of course, he is very experienced in his field. He's also a human. We all can make mistakes. And of course, he's not a genetic doctor in his field, but he has a very, very much experience in his field working with those animals. And I know that we know from other animals that indeed sometimes that what you said, the visual heads can, look like the,
they have a little bit of a change to them, like they have some markers, or
it is the same outcome whether you have a Maxno mutation where you have the Maxno and the super form, so the codominant form, or the incomplete dominant form and the codominant form. But also if you have, what we described before, you will have the same outcome. You will have 50% larger animals and 50% even more larger animals. So which theory is right? We will not really know at this point until we do a study, a scientific study, and really get into data. That's the problem here. So, and I mean, honestly, if you hear me speaking today, when I got into geckos, I was like, oh, it's so easy, I know the answer. But the more and more I get into the core of things, the more I understand that there are so many things that look the same but have totally similar genetic systems lying underneath. So we have to be aware of that. We have to be open-eyed. We have to be educated. And also there is a cool book, Genetics for Dummies, which I can really recommend. And if you're interested in further information about genetics and animals, I can really recommend you, again, invest the time. Investing in knowledge is the most valuable thing you can do as a gecko breeder. So when people ask me what's the secret to success, the secret to success is not buying this one animal for 1,000 euros or dollars. The $2,000 gecko is worth nothing. It's like a pistol, an unloaded gun. If you don't know how to handle it, you go nowhere, and you can go so far. And I'm a prime example for that. I started with nothing. Literally nothing. And yes, it took some time, but what I did was I was always hungry for knowledge. And at first I was reading all the books and all the information that I could find around. And of course, sooner or later, unfortunately, you come at a certain point where this isn't enough anymore. And you know that you're missing information, specific information that you need for your niche, for your situation. So you need to find experts, mentors, tutors, to help you in that. And those euros that you invest in those mentors, I've done it before. I have been tutored by dog breeders, horse breeders, whatever. And of course, they don't understand anything from geckos, and it wasn't transferable one-to-one. But, if you put in the work and effort, at least I was able to a little bit, look between the lines and get a better and better and better understanding over the years. So if you find someone, no matter who it is, who can teach you and tutor you in those specific areas that you struggle with, this is the best investment in yourself, because no recession can ever take this from you, this knowledge, this money that you invested and what you got for this money. No sickness and disease of your geckos can ever take this from you. The $1 million gecko can die. Your knowledge will never die. So this is something that I really want to stress out. You don't need to, I don't want to advertise my services here. You can go to whoever feels right for you. And you can also go to a snake breeder, whatever. I don't care. But we have to really stress the point and the fact that the best money when you're looking for success in reptile business or in reptile hobby is to invest in yourself, in your knowledge first. And then with the knowledge, you are so much more able making decisions that bring you straightforward, save you a lot of time and money, save you a lot of stress, and the animals are, so much better cared for.
Especially, like you said, when the market's heading into a recession, like America is heading into a recession right now, it's tough to sell animals right now in America, much tougher than the last couple of years. So a lot of people are freaking out, like dropping their prices, like just trying to get rid of stuff. To avoid all of that, if you just have a collection if you have a collection that's smaller and manageable, you don't have to feel the pressure of dropping prices or just offloading stuff because it's taking up too much of your time. You have the opportunity to dig deep, just buckle down until that recession passes. And on the other end of that recession, demand will be back up again. And your geckos will actually be even more valuable because they'll be adults. And adult geckos are typically always more valuable than babies. People are willing to pay because people want to get right into breeding most of the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And just look at the albais. When I got into them, they were they have always hold their value. They were always valuable animals. But when I got them, they were around $300-400. Now you don't find them under 1K. So they are as rare and as valuable. And if you add and stack some cool polygenetic markers into this albay, where you can start right off, 5 years ahead of others that having other albay stuff, this is something that is very, very valuable. So whatever you do, whatever your passion is, stick to it. And my albays are the best example. You just need to meet the demand. If there's low demand, then you just produce fewer things. And I know many people don't want to hear this, but for me, it's so much better producing fewer animals to the people on my waiting list, because I know for sure that those are the clients that I can handle. And there are no price discussions. There is no fear of my side that those geckos will end up in terrible conditions. And whenever the demand goes up again and people are, writing more and more and more, then I can adapt to that naturally. So, but you don't have to, put yourself in a situation where you feel also for your health and mental health. There's nothing more disturbing. Honestly, as a leopard breeder, I can tell you that I have been there. Especially as a young girl. There's nothing more disturbing to sit there on a reptile show, have beautiful geckos, and then you see the prices of everyone else, and you suddenly have the feeling you're not good enough and you don't deserve to take the prices for your animals. So you correct your prices and go down, and people buy your animals that you never want to have them with in the first place. And if you've made this experience one time, if you're smart, you'll take the consequences. You don't want to repeat that. So I was like, okay, I don't want to repeat that. I'm not, overly expensive, but my animals are not cheap, and therefore you get a lot of line breeding work that has been put into those animals. But I think they're affordable. People buy $10,000 snakes, so I don't feel stressed at all by holding the prices of my animals for what they are worth. And just produce fewer geckos and go with the flow for a few years. And as you said, then you're right back when the demand goes up again.
I'm just going to show your neon bell real quick in closing here. Well, one of them that we see.
Yeah. He's not even the best one.
Oh, so what you're saying is people need to peruse through your. Oh, you don't even have any more here, so we got to wait for you to put it up, right? Well, that's exciting. So if you want to see, I think it's really exciting. You're kind of like a breath of fresh air, like bringing into the hobby some stuff for people to look forward to. Now, did you say real quick that the neon bell was actually different than the actual bell in the fact that it produced like higher colored animals in general? You said that she proved something, the lady that created
it was like it was similar to the electrics. We had the normal tangerines and they had, medium orange and spots, and then suddenly we had the neon bells who were red or reddish color. And same goes for bells. At that time we had beautiful bell projects with a little tangerine and much spotting going on, because if you remember, the old bell line had a huge potential for body markings. It was not so easy breeding those, patterns out of the bells initially. And that all changed with the neon bells. They were basically spotless and neon reddish orange in beautiful striped look, and they just were significantly different from everything that people have seen. And if you go to the Leopard Gecko Pro app, for example, you see one of the founders that we produced, and this is just the animal that we produced. That's not even the animals that Christina Voss produced. So I think the quality really speaks for themselves. They produce a really high quality, but of course, we have to take care that inbreeding is not an issue. So of course, we also need to outcross them. And this initial group has split into 2 or 3 different bloodlines right now. So that's what I always do. I'm trying to keep, one center, one corner line, and then I create sidelines where I can then crisscross and, make sure that the gene pool is always fresh and not too narrow, but on the other hand, that I don't lose this visual markers that make the neon bell. And this is also why people are frustrated when I got this morph and didn't put anything for sale. It's not as easy as that. If you want to do it responsible, it can take 5 years or longer. It's just like that. It's like in the ball python scene. You can't breed 3 generations of snake in 2 years. It's impossible. And with leopard geckos and the very fast time span that we have from one generation to another, we often underestimate the real effort that it takes, not only creating a bloodline from scratch that takes you at least 5 years if you want to do it really good. 3 years is the absolute minimum that I would even consider it a line. And if you're doing something from scratch, you almost see nothing after 3 generations. And when I now look at my projects that I've bred for 10 generations, 15 generations, and now they make a shift and turn for a certain trait, I realize that, of course, not one fits all solution is the right thing here, but some lines, they tend to need a really long time before they come around, and others you can fix pretty quick, but still you can't do it in 1 or 2 generations. You need at least a few generations. So you have this data and you have the security and also the genetic backup in the generations to ensure that what you're selling is actually holding true.
Just one kind of quick closure on the neon bell thing. I'm sure in the offspring, you probably see some offspring that are more expressive, more colorful, and others that aren't, right? The ones that are not, do they still have the potential to create really colorful offspring when they're bred? You know what I mean? So like they're carrying that genetic potential. Would you adjust the price on that, or do you keep them the same price as the ones that look just as good?
I can tell you when I release them. I don't know.
Well, because
I don't find it fair, to make assumptions, because I don't know when I will release them. I don't have a date yet, and I don't like to be pressured by this. I really want to take my time, and I will for sure not I don't think I will have anything available next season. So please bear with me and have some patience. And yeah, I just want to be sure that I know what I'm selling. That's always my main focus. And it's different, if I cross something into bloodline that I already have, then I can evaluate so much quicker because I already know my lines and I know how they behave, and I just have a blueprint to compare. And with the neons, they were not my project, and so I have to really start. I had to really to start from scratch here. Plus, many things that I wanted to cross into, I didn't dare because I was afraid of the stubble heads, and that's what I wanted to avoid. So I was really taking the most secure route, and that's often the slowest route. But it's okay. So we are not in a rush, and we will see when the time comes. I mean, it totally depends on the market and the market needs. If there's a high demand and the quantity that I can offer is very low, then of course the market will regulate that. And I mean, I always try to be fair, but I also don't want to sell, an animal for a fraction of the price to somebody who might feel tempted to now breed this bad quality animal in masses and ruin the name of the bloodline by. And we saw this with the electrics, and this was also one of the reasons why I was really trying to get out of social media, because I really couldn't take it anymore. I know how electrics look, and I have them in my collection. They're so wonderful. And in Europe, suddenly everybody was breeding electrics, and what they did was they bought my crosses, and then they crossed them out even more, and then they sold them as pure electrics. And nowadays, so many people in Europe think that electric is a normal tangerine. No, that's like to say a Ferrari is a Fiat. I'm sorry. No, no. A donkey is not a horse. It's just no. And if you want to know how electrics look, then please Google. You will find the pictures, and you will see that. Yeah.
Or you could buy Ron's book and app and all that stuff, right? Because you work with them.
No, I don't want to advertise any products here, but it's just my personal thing, what has helped me. So you don't have to buy anything. Please don't take this.
No, I'm just saying that's where
I'm not getting paid for any recommendations here. So
the electric and like the Go stuff, that is in some of Ron's work because you collaborated with them on that, you said, right? Or that was my only thing that I was mentioning. Because sometimes when you Google, you can come up with, like you said, you can come up with like false breeders advertising. So like, how do you know which, if you Google like electric tangerine, some might show up as.
The Ghost Trade definitely is published in Ron Tramp's book, and I think, I'm not sure about the electric because his first book is very old, and I don't know if he put them into them. I would have to research that. But what I know for sure is that my work has been published in a German Leopard Gecko book for sure. Also my newer lines and projects. Probably not interesting for you guys because you don't know German, but
that would be good if you did, or if there's an English translation.
But you will find the neon belts you will find in the app, and probably you should find the electrics there too. But I'm not sure anymore. I don't use them regularly. It was just for me nice to have, and sometimes I'll look that up, but I don't know, in my head what's published there or not.
Well, that's really cool. Well, thank you for all your time today, Rebecca. You gave us a lot of time. I think it's really great that you did. I'd love to promote this and officially, from my perspective, welcome you back to this side of the social media of the hobby and everything like that. And I think that, like you said, time is on our side. The longer that a project works to take, the more valuable it's seen. The less commonly it's worked with, the more demand there is and value there is, and that helps control the pace of animals becoming underappreciated or misrepresented, So I think it's great that someone with your passion is back on the social media side of things, and I think you'll develop an organic following that will believe you and trust you based on your experience and be able to tell the difference between what a con might be versus the reality. And so I hope you don't get discouraged about all the con artists that are out there and you just do your thing. And like you said, I think you're going to do that and be phenomenal. But we got a couple fun wrap-up questions here for you. So I've never been to Europe. You're in Germany, you said, right? I always ask our American people like what their favorite and not favorite food is, but I don't really know how to ask that for you because I might not know German dishes and stuff. But what is your favorite German food or German dish, I guess, that you can speak about or just say?
None. I love sushi.
Okay. Is there any food you just don't like? Like you just don't like pasta or you don't like,
Who doesn't like pasta? Pasta is amazing.
amazing.
No,
So you like all food?
I'm a food person. I don't have,
As far as the sushi, are you more on like the raw side, like the really sushi, or are you like,
yes,
okay,
yes.
I can only handle the very minute sushi that's like cooked fish or whatever. That's like, but I'm big into rice because my mom is Filipino, so I eat rice with everything. So
Wow,
sometimes I would just eat the rice of the sushi, like leave the meat aside and just eat the rice.
my tip is take the chance if you can and go to one of the best quality original sushi makers. If you have never tasted the quality of the fish is everything. If you taste butterfish, it really doesn't taste like fish. You think you're chewing on a piece of butter. It's amazing.
Well,
It doesn't. Also, the salmon, but I think there's nothing better than good sushi, and there's nothing worse than bad sushi. So please go for quality, not for quantity. And but I think that Filipino cuisine has for sure many healthy and cool dishes to offer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or like curry and.
So my favorite thing with the Filipino food, I'm really, really picky when I eat. Like I'm a snob. I'm sorry. I don't like certain things and like I don't like fish, so I don't eat fish kind of thing, So like I've always been really picky. And the Filipinos, oh my gosh, they eat the craziest stuff. They will eat like fish eyes, fish eggs, fish head. So like I normally don't like Filipino cuisine too much, but there's a couple dishes I love. And one of them is called lechon, which is the fully cooked pig. And it's got like hard pig skin and then juicy, tender pig meat. So I really, really love the lechon. Have you ever had lechon or?
No, but there's a German equivalent. It's called Spanferkel. It's really crispy. It's really crispy, and then it's roasted on the fire.
Yes, exactly.
It's a whole pig, and yeah,
it's great, right?
Yeah, it tastes great.
So, what about movies in Europe? Are they something really weird is happening with my Netflix here, and maybe our viewers can identify this as well. Netflix will show me like 5 out of like it'll give me like 5 out of 10 recommendations that are in another language. So I get really excited about the title and I open it up and it's in like German or something, or it's in like Korean. And I'm like, I don't understand German or Korean. I don't know why Netflix is doing this, but do you have like what do you guys like over there as far as like German TV? Do you watch like Netflix or anything like that? Or
you're asking the wrong question.
You don't watch a lot of TV?
I don't watch a lot of TV.
Okay, fair
and
enough.
If I do, I watch on my computer and I watch true crime and it's all in English and I'm more on the American side of things. So
okay, you like the crime films?
Yeah.
Is there something that you really don't like romantic comedy or just like funny comedy or something?
I don't have. No, I wouldn't say so. It all depends on the film and the actors, and there are so many genres with great films, and not every day is comedy day, and not every day is drama day. But once in a while, if you're in the mood and you find the right film, it really contributes to a really cool experience. So I was watching Interstellar for the first time, and that was tough actually. That's a really hard, bitter pill to swallow if you're getting the message, but it was overwhelming, and all the music, it was so dark but so
Yeah.
intense, and it was like this whole
It was,
universe that you get sucked in, and you can't find a way out, and it's one of those films that you certainly, in my feeling, I wouldn't watch every day, but it was amazing. It was
yeah, it makes you
inspiring.
think, right?
Makes you
Um,
think about the value of life and time. Yeah.
that's true. That is very true. I mean, that's a good topic. What about, I don't know why, when I picture Europe, I always picture like, I don't know, like rainy Scotland, or, you know, I picture like a dark and gloomy setting. How's the weather out there in Germany or Europe as a whole? Like, what are your seasons and stuff like that?
You're lucky because I'm living in the California of Europe, so or the
Oh,
California of Germany actually. So the climate is very different, and in the north in England, yes, you have lots of rainy weather, but we're having normal seasons. And I'm living in the south of Germany, which is very warm, and I
nice.
mean, it's not California, of course, but it's like, I don't know, normal season.
Warm, what would you describe as warm as a German?
Um,
Fahrenheit, preferably, if you know.
no, I don't know Fahrenheit. I know
Okay,
Celsius.
what
But
about
I mean,
Celsius?
let's take it this way. I was visiting Salt Lake City, and this is definitely not my climate zone, my preferred climate zone from a personal taste. But I live more in the green forest, things.
Okay.
So it's not too warm, but it's not too cold. And in the south, you have a lot of sunny days, and you have stunning mountains, and yeah, beautiful
Beautiful, beautiful
landscape.
scenery. Yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine it a little bit like in where I live. It's a little bit like a Hoppingen, like where the hobbits live. It's like this, lush green things, and after that you have the huge mountains with Black Forest. Actually, is a beautiful place to visit. It's really contrasts the area that I live in, because the Black Forest is, as I said, very dark and
Mm.
mysterious, and yeah, rocky mountains and beautiful landscape and full of legends, and you stumble across history. There are Celtic and Germanic archaeological relicts everywhere. You just stumble upon stone, relicts from your early forefathers, even before Christianity. It's amazing. And some traditions even, yeah, survived before Christianity and have found their way into our culture. So it's always, for me, as a person very interested in history, it's always amazing to see 1,500, 2,000 years of history emerging directly before me when I go for a walk, and make me think of all those people. And they're also your forefathers in some way or the other. So many of the US immigrants are,
For sure.
originated from Europe and brought their culture and their beliefs with them and formed a new society with new culture. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's always
the
cool.
picture you just painted sounds really nice, to be able to walk into the dark. You called it the dark forest or the black forest?
It's
That
called
sounds
Black
cool.
Forest, actually, yes. And it's a pretty big area of middle-sized mountains, heavily covered in dark pine woods, or what's the name, in dark woods. So it appears black, and you have this fog everywhere coming out in, not in summer but in winter, when the climate is changing. You can walk there, and suddenly you hit a wall of fog. It's like in this King Arthur legends. And in the summer,
Wow.
it's totally different. It's lush and it's warm and sunny and green. So, yeah, the seasons offer very different experiences. And it's
Yeah.
perfect for trekking, hiking, whatever you want to do.
Are you? Yeah. If you're a big outdoorsy person, whenever I go to the Grand Canyon here in Arizona, we see a ton of like Germans and like Swedish and like European people. Like they look at the Grand Canyon as like a great challenge. They're very outdoorsy. And when I go into the Grand Canyon, I would actually say about 90% of the people at the Grand Canyon are not from America. It's pretty crazy. And they're all in really good shape too. So like you as an American going in are like typically not in that great shape, and you're getting passed up by like 10-year-old girls, you know, like hiking up and down the mountain. So it's pretty cool to see the cultures kind of intermixing at that point here.
I so much hope I will have the chance to visit US again. I made 2 trips so far. One was to Florida and one was to Salt Lake City, Utah. And of course, I visited the dinosaur museum in Utah, and that was amazing. That is something that I really miss in Europe. So we have a lot of castles and all these old buildings from the Romantic Empire and the medieval times. So things that you guys freak out about a lot. That's so funny. Whenever I go to visit one of the castles, it's always the Americans like, oh, look at this, 2,000 years of history. Oh, it's so great. And I said, yeah, that's my everyday business.
That's my everyday. Yeah, I would love when you said castle. I was like,
I was the same. I was just standing in Utah and I was like, oh, look at this. This is amazing. So much dinosaurs. And the Americans beside me were like, girl, really? So, we dig them out all the time, you know, they grow like mushrooms here. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So that I think that's one of the huge, you know, benefits that you get when you're visiting another country, another continent. I can really recommend it. It's life-changing. It gives you so much more personal depth and insights and enrichment, and it totally blows you away. People they were so nice to me in the US all the time. So I made fantastic experiences, and I really hope to come again and see more of the US. Definitely on my bucket list.
Nice. Couple last things that I want to. So over the last, like, I want to say year to year and a half, I discovered this amazing band called Nightwish, and they seem like this fantasy European rock group. Do you know who they are?
Yes, I know who they are, and their old singer, their original singer, Irene Cara, originally she's an opera singer, and she is amazing. I love the song Nemo. That's my favorite.
Nemo is like, okay, I love rock and roll, like 80s rock and stuff, but when I heard this kind of like, it's almost like fantasy science fiction rock, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This fits all of my fantasy, like, you know, I love dinosaurs, geckos, dragons, all that kind of stuff. It fits right in that category so well. They were actually the new singer for them or whatever is like, they're touring around the United States now, and they were like near me recently, but I wasn't able to go. But I would say a lot of Americans don't know who Nightwish is, but I mention it now in like all of my videos and stuff because like I think the music is truly amazing. So it's really, really cool. But that's pretty much it, unless you want to tell us I don't think you told me earlier what gamer you used to be. You said you were a gamer of what was your popular game? Were you like a streamer? Did you go like to the max?
No. I never did that. My days of, you know, playing online games are long over. So I haven't played an online game, I don't know in how many years, but I really enjoy currently playing Jurassic World Evolution.
Oh yeah, Jurassic World. Yeah, I have the phone version. Are you talking about a different version, or is that
the really computer version? So
okay,
that you can buy on stream.
Yeah, I saw some advertisements for it. It looked amazing.
It is. You can even name the geckos. You can name the dinosaurs, and if you put them in groups, one of them become the alpha. And, you know, boss the others around and rule them. And you can also, it reminds me so much on gecko breeding, because you can develop certain mutations, and then you can increase or decrease their aggression level. And you have to always, and like in breeding, it's so cool. You have to decide which road you want to go. You know, do you want the most value? Then the animal is aggressive, hard to handle, and of course also prone for some illnesses, diseases. So maybe you don't want to go too far in this direction. But on the other hand, of course, you also want to breed some of the higher end stuff. And so you always have to a little bit, you know, compromise and find your way. And I think this is what good breeding also makes, that you have to compromise between what's the best for the animal and what's the best, for your breeding goals, and then you just find the right and proper ways to do so. And that's what I can do without any risk in Jurassic World. And if they go out and bite the people, I lose money, okay, but sometimes it's just fun to watch.
That sounds really interesting. So this is not a plug for Jurassic World, but if that sounds good to you, then go ahead and check it out, because that sounds pretty good to me. In conclusion, Rob was saying schnitzel is his favorite food.
Yeah, schnitzel is good.
That's like the only German word I know.
But it's originated from Austria.
Oh, what is it though? Is it bread or meat?
No, it's meat. It's
sausage, like a sausage stick?
No, it's meat. It's a piece of meat that is covered in a kind of panade.
Oh, bread. Yeah, panada or tortilla.
No. I'm lacking the words here to explain to you. You have to Google schnitzel.
Okay,
definitely, and you have to try one. It's really
like
delicious.
The only German word that sticks out of my head. You always hear about it, like schnitzel.
Maybe you could describe it best as kind of fried meat, but it's not really fried. It's made in a pan,
Yeah. But I will look it up, and I will make it my goal to try it. Even though it's Austrian, you said, and not German necessarily.
It originated in Austria, yeah, but it's very common in Germany as well. So we don't care. They are neighbors. We speak the same language anyway. So the Austrian and the Swiss people, they always hate it when people, identify them as Germans. But we Germans, we are the big brother. We don't care so much if you.
Well, if any of you guys missed it, I mean, Rebecca was dropping some serious information and knowledge that is very valuable to the leopard gecko hobby. Can you just tag yourself in a few places that people can read up on this information or follow you? Like you were talking about Gecko Time, your Instagram. Can you go ahead and just tag yourself in different places people could follow your work and the history you're sharing for geckos?
Yeah, sure. You can find my work on Gecko Time. You can find some animals pictured in the Leopard Gecko Pro app. You can also find me on books. It's a German book, Der Leopard Gecko und seine Farbformen, but it's also Il Gecko Leopardino in an Italian book. That's one of my earlier works, and some others. But generally, you find me on Facebook, of course, Dragoon Gecko. It's the same. And of course, on Instagram, which is my most recent and most active channel. I just launched it, as I said, this season on Halloween. And we're really trying to build up an organic and active community over there with, live chats and live events where I can directly communicate with you guys. And we have a chat about the good old times and just getting the knowledge out there and answering your questions for, general topics of line breeding and quality management and whatever comes to your mind. So please feel free to visit me on Instagram Dragoon Gecko, and hope to see you over there.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here once again. Anybody who's left here watching, or if you're rewatching this, can you please consider supporting Dragoon Gecko if you would like to learn more about gecko history and kind of tie into some of the finer delicacies of leopard gecko breeding. Our interview covered a lot of topics that I think would touch on that. And following Rebecca's relaunch and Halloween entry back into the social media public eye, so to speak, I think will not only benefit you, but it'll benefit anybody that you potentially have an impact on. And us just sharing our love for leopard geckos and ethical breeding and collaboration and all of that together. So I thank you very much, Rebecca. I know we had about 3 hours, a little over 3 hours of conversation. It's absolutely amazing. I know it's late over there, so I hope you can enjoy the rest of your evening and maybe get a good night's rest and enjoy tomorrow with the geckos, the Dragoon Geckos.
Thank you so very much. And just some closing remark, collaborations is the key on growing on Instagram, guys. So the times of, just doing your stuff for yourself are definitely over. So grab your buddy, go to live events, start a collaboration post, connect with each other, and you will see that others have so much to offer. And I want to thank you for giving me the chance today to, yeah, take the message a little bit further into a new generation and maybe inspire some older and younger folks here and giving valuable information. Hopefully, if you have any wishes of future content, you can drop me a message, a DM on Insta, and I will do my best to collect them. And maybe we can also catch up on that in a future podcast. So I'll be open for that.
I'll definitely message you about your friend on the medical side of things, and we could talk a little bit more about the impact of parasites and more medical side stuff for the leopard geckos. But
Sure.
Thank you so much once again. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Rebecca. Maybe a good Law and Order or crime show to kind of end your night. But thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, and everybody in the chat thanks you as well.
Thank you so very much for having me, and thanks for all who are watching this, and wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Have a good night. Happy holidays over there too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Selling in the billions each year, Rainbow Mealworms is your one-stop shop for all your insect needs. Their quality feeders and A-plus customer service keep me coming back to support the health and growth of all of our animals. Visit them today at rainbowmealworms.net to